I once thought nothing could be worse than my own brother stealing every penny of our father's legacy, until that night 2 a.m. drunk pounding on my door like a madman. "I won't let you take it all, Sophia." His screams sliced through the wood drenched in whiskey and hate. I stood there shaking, clutching my chest, as the doorknob twisted so hard it nearly broke. Those eyes, they still haunt me. If you think this is just another family story, you're wrong. Hit subscribe now so you won't miss the raw, gut-wrenching truths in our next films. The screen is black. For a long moment, there's only darkness and the ragged, almost feral sound of a woman sobbing. Then, gasping through tears, her voice breaks the silence. "How could you do this to me? Julian, how—" It's raw, breathless, more an animal's wounded moan than human speech. The words trail into a strangled hiccup. There's a long inhale and then silence again, so complete it presses against the eardrums. A single white line appears on the screen 6 days earlier. Cut! The first shot is a bright Tokyo afternoon, a high aerial view of the neon maze that is Shibuya. Cars snake along impossibly tangled streets. Thousands of people cross the famous scramble in orchestrated chaos. Over this, a light jazz remix of an old American pop song plays faintly background music from some street performer. The camera swoops down almost playful, then cuts to a crowded departure terminal at Narita Airport. Sophia Carter stands at gate 34 leaning against a column of glass staring at her phone. Her lips are painted a soft coral that makes her blue eyes pop, her dark hair piled up in a loose knot. She's wearing a trim navy business suit, sharp but softened by the small panda keychain dangling from her carry-on. She taps out a text with a smile playing on her face. "Got you something from Asakusa. Hope you didn't eat all the cookie dough ice cream. See you soon, little bro." She hits send, tucks her phone into her pocket. The gate attendant calls her row. She exhales, eyes bright, shifting from one foot to another with restless energy. A subtle lift to her shoulders, like someone about to rush forward into a long-anticipated hug. As she boards, she pulls a slim, lacquered box from her tote and opens it just a crack. Inside, wrapped in red tissue, is a small, delicate netsuke, an intricately carved ivory owl no bigger than a thumb. She brushes her finger over it, then snaps it shut, smiling to herself. A gift, a surprise. Something she can't wait to give Julian. On the plane, Sophia barely notices the 13 hours. She works on her laptop with earbuds in, eats half the teriyaki tray, then stares out at endless ocean below. When she finally falls asleep, she dreams vividly. Julian waiting at the airport, arms flung wide, laughing, joking how he knew she'd spoil him with exotic gifts. In the dream, their late father stands behind Julian, proud, nodding at the two of them. Sophia wakes with her cheek damp from tears, unsure if they're from joy or grief. Customs is a blur. Her phone reconnects to the U.S. network and immediately floods with push notifications, emails from clients, a few spam texts, no messages from Julian. She shrugs it off. Maybe he's asleep. She rents a sleek black hybrid, humming softly as she drives out of the airport into the gray wash of a Seattle morning. The city slides by familiar streets, welcoming her back with the gentle drizzle tapping the windshield. Sophia feels a silly flutter in her chest. Home. 40 minutes later, she turns onto the quiet lane that cradles her childhood. Maple trees line the street, heavy with dew, the leaves a lush green ceiling. The car slows almost instinctively. There up ahead is the house, a modest 2-story colonial with faded navy shutters, a slightly crooked porch swing. Her father had built that swing himself. She'd painted it with Julian one long summer day, both of them sticky with lemonade. Sophia's heart expands. She can already see it. Julian loping out the door, tousle-haired and barefoot, calling her a corporate vampire and grabbing the owl box from her hands. Maybe later tonight they'll order pad thai watch reruns of The Office. Her mouth quirks at the thought. But as she coasts up to the curb, a weird twinge hits her. Something's wrong. The mailbox is stuffed to bursting flyers curled with rain. The grass is knee-high. Weeds choke the flower beds. On the front door she squints, there's a bright orange sticker. Her gut plunges. Parking hastily, she jogs up the walk heels, sinking into soft earth. Then she sees it. A cheap plastic sign jammed into the ground for sale. The words tilt sideways, sun-bleached like it's been there far too long. The window's empty. No curtains, no faint glow of a lamp, just blank, soulless rectangles. Her father's house looks abandoned. Sophia's pulse gallops. She drops her bag on the porch and tries the door. Locked. She rattles it harder, then steps back and scans for a spare key. Once they kept one in a rusty turtle under the azalea bush, but the bush has been hacked to the ground, the turtle gone. She presses her face to the glass. Inside the foyer yawns back at her stripped bare. No scuffed oak table with the bowl for keys, no battered leather armchair where Julian would pile his backpack. Just an echo. Sophia stumbles back, fish-hooked by panic. She digs out her phone, tries Julian's number. It rings once. Then a flat mechanical voice. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." Her breath stutters. She tries again. Same result. She tries their cousin Lily. Voicemail. Then their old neighbor, Mrs. Hawthorne, no answer. Turning slowly, Sophia notices the curtains of the house across the street twitch. An elderly man in suspenders stands on the porch, clutching a coffee cup, staring. She raises a hand, tries to smile, walks over. "Mr. Dobbs, hi, it's me, Sophia Carter. From across the way. I just got back. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with our house. Have you seen Julian? Do you know if—" His mouth twists, eyes skittering to the side. He lifts his coffee, takes a deliberate sip. "You'll want to talk to the bank, sweetheart," he mutters, finally, voice scratchy. "Lot of changes since your pa passed. Lot of debt, they said." Sophia's stomach flips. Debt. Julian said everything was handled, that Dad had paid down. Mr. Dobbs cuts in, shifting from foot to foot, uncomfortable. "That boy was around here with some fella in his suit, papers to sign. Realtor, I think. Didn't take but 2 weeks and the movers showed up. Didn't even stop by to say goodbye." The words lodge like ice shards in her chest. Julian sold the house, without telling her. She clutches her tote tighter, pulse fluttering in her throat. "Did you, by any chance, see where they went? Did Julian say anything?" He shakes his head. "I mind my own business, Miss Carter." "Best you do too. Sorry." And he shuffles back inside, door shutting with a soft thud. Sophia stands rooted on the pavement, raindrops sliding down her forehead, mingling with the sudden hot tears on her cheeks. She turns back toward the empty house. From here, the for sale sign glares at her like an accusation. The ghost of her father seems to hover on the porch, hand outstretched, then vanishes. Her phone dings, a work email. Her fingers shake as she swipes it away. She scrolls desperately through old texts from Julian, jokes about crypto investments, pictures of takeout meals, silly memes he sent at 3 a.m. The last message was nearly a month ago. "Don't wait up tonight. Might crash at Kara's LOL." Kara, the girl he'd been seeing off and on. The one who always side-eyed Sophia at barbecues. The one Dad had once whispered he didn't trust. Sophia sinks onto the curb, legs giving out. Cars cruise lazily past splashing puddles. A breeze kicks up, stirring the wild grass along the fence. She hugs her knees, breathes in shallow gasps. The last place she ever expected to feel unwelcome was here on the block, that still smelled faintly of honeysuckle and warm asphalt that had held her through scraped knees and high school heartbreaks through her father's funeral just 2 years ago. The betrayal is so vast it doesn't fit inside her. It leaks out in heaving sobs, her face buried in her arms. Far down the street, a dog barks. A delivery truck rumbles by. Life continues with cruel indifference. Sophia lifts her head, finely, eyes swollen, mascara streaked. She stares at the house for a long moment. Then she picks up her phone again, thumb hovering over Julian's name. Her jaw tightens. She tries one last time. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." Click. She stands, gathering her bag with wooden movements. As she walks back to her rental, she feels eyes on her curtains, shifting shadows behind windows, neighbors watching, pitying, or judging. She can't decide which is worse. Inside the car, she grips the steering wheel, breathes through her nose, and lets her mind go blessedly blank for a few seconds. Then she starts the engine. The dashboard lights up. The radio flickers on a bright, obnoxiously cheerful pop song blaring. Sophia switches it off instantly. The sudden silence feels like a cocoon. She backs away from the curb. The house falls away in her rearview mirror, growing smaller, just another shape swallowed by the mist. For the first time since she was 4 years old, she has no home to return to. And for the first time since her father died, she is truly, terrifyingly alone. Out on the main road, the light turns green. Sophia presses her foot to the gas and drives forward into the unknown. Sophia parks 3 blocks away in a space by a rusted mailbox that looks like it's been struck by countless baseball bats. She walks back on foot, hugging herself against the damp breeze. Her shoes squish through sodden leaves. The neighborhood is unsettlingly still. No kids on bikes, no one grilling in driveways, just rows of houses clutching secrets behind drawn curtains. At the foot of the driveway, she stands by the battered blue mailbox. The little red flag is up, ironically cheerful. She opens it. Inside, the cavity overflows. Envelopes fan out like brittle flower petals. Some are addressed to Julian, some to her. She pulls them all out, feeling them crinkle under her grip. Her name, Sophia Carter, is scrawled across bills, pre-approved credit offers. A jury summons from 2 months ago. Her breath catches, then something else. A large envelope from Ridgeview Title and Escrow. She tears it open right there on the curb. Inside is a settlement statement for the house sale. Line after line of legalese and dollar figures. Near the bottom, her eyes freeze on the signature line. It's supposed to be hers. It says Sophia Carter, but it's not her handwriting, not even close. Her vision tunnels. Black spots blossom across the paper. Her pulse pounds so violently she feels it in her teeth. Her name is there, twisted and misused. A crude forgery, masquerading as her consent to sell the only piece of her father she had left. She crushes the papers in her fist, the edges biting into her palm. When she finally breathes again, it comes out in a raw, jagged exhale. She stuffs everything into her purse, practically sprinting back to the rental. Her legs don't feel steady under her, like they're half water, half air. The car's interior is cold and smells faintly of lemon cleaner. Sophia grips the wheel, the leather cool under her fingers, and tries to slow her breath. In, out, in, out. But the betrayal sears through her like acid. Julian didn't just lie, he didn't just run, he erased her, signed her name, pocketed the money, and disappeared. She wants to call the police, a lawyer, anyone, but can't. Her mind is chaos. Questions ricochet off the inside of her skull. How long had he planned this? Was Kara involved? Was Julian ever going to tell her at all? Sophia starts the engine and drives without thinking, almost hoping the road itself will decide her direction. 15 minutes later, she pulls into the cracked lot of a cheap roadside motel, a neon sign flickering overhead like a faulty heartbeat. Vacancy. It hisses at her in electric pink. Inside the office, the clerk doesn't look up from his phone when she approaches. He pushes a paper across the counter. She signs with a hand that barely works pays with the last credit card not yet frozen by fraud alert. The room key is old-fashioned, a dull brass tag attached to a jagged metal key. She clutches it like a lifeline. Room 12 is up a narrow set of stairs. The carpet smells of mildew and stale cigarettes. Her suitcase bumps against each step as she hauls it behind her. When she reaches the door, her hands tremble so badly she drops the key twice. The door creaks open to a room bathed in sad amber light from a single lamp. There's a bed with a worn floral spread, a tiny round table, a squeaky faux leather chair, a battered dresser with the TV bolted on top. The walls are beige-pocked with nail holes from artwork long removed. Sophia sets her suitcase down and closes the door. For a moment, she just stands there, staring at the deadbolt, waiting for her legs to understand they can stop moving. Then she crosses to the window and pulls aside the thin curtain. Outside is the neon sign casting everything in a sickly glow. Beyond that, only darkness. She sits at the table, rests her forehead on her folded arms. Her body feels wrong, heavy, and hollow at the same time. There's a faint sound like water dripping into a sink somewhere far away. It becomes a kind of rhythm. In that rhythm, memories start bubbling up uninvited. A dusty summer afternoon. Her father's sleeves, rolled up sweat streaking dirt down his arms, is bent over blueprints at the kitchen table. She's 10, swinging her feet from the chair opposite him, sketching clumsy flowers in the margins of the plans. "Gonna build you a castle one day, Soph," he says, winking. "This one's already my castle," she answers, grinning. He laughs, musses her hair with his big calloused hand. The house then still smelled of fresh lumber hope and lemon polish. Every evening they'd sit on the porch swing together, counting fireflies, talking about how many more properties he might buy, how she could help him paint new rentals one day. Her mother had died when Sophia was 4, so it was just the two of them, a tight little orbit of father and daughter satellites around each other's gravity. Now in the motel, the gravity is gone. She's drifting untethered, trying to hold on to echoes. Sophia wipes her eyes and drags her suitcase closer. Inside is the delicate box from Tokyo. The carved owl stares up at her, tiny and wise, unknowing of betrayal. It was meant to be a gift, a small piece offering a symbol of how their messy family could still share soft moments. Now it sits in her palm, like an accusation. Her mind keeps replaying Julian's grin, boyish, careless. How many lies was he telling all along? Was he already planning to carve her name across documents she'd never see? A tear splashes on the owl's head. She closes the box, sets it on the nightstand like a tombstone. Sophia walks to the bed, sits at the edge, then slides down until she's curled in a tight comma facing the wall. She presses her fist against her lips to stop the noise, but it comes anyway, a low, guttural sob. It rises from somewhere deep in her ribs, shaking her entire frame. The first real, unrestrained crying she's done since the day her father died. She cries for the stolen house, for the ghost of her father in every empty room, for the little girl who once danced barefoot through sawdust piles while he called her his queen. She cries for Julian, too, because once he was just her little brother, all freckles and scraped knees clambering onto her shoulders to pick apples. But that boy is gone. In his place stands a stranger who forged her life away. Minutes, maybe hours pass. When she finally stops, her throat feels raw, her eyes swollen nearly shut. She stares at the wall until the shapes blur and shift. Maybe she dozes time warp strangely when pain is your only companion. When she blinks back to herself, dawn is just starting to leach gray into the edges of the motel curtains. Sophia pushes herself upright legs, unsteady palms pressed to her temples. The grief is still there, dense and gnawing. But under it a spark of something else. Not quite anger, not yet resolve. Just the hollow instinct of someone who's been cornered too long, who might eventually remember how to bare her teeth. She doesn't know what comes next. Only that she can't let this be the end. Not for her. Not for the father who built everything from nothing with blistered hands and hopeful blueprints. Sophia Carter takes a slow breath, tasting dust and old tears. Then she stands crosses to the little motel bathroom and splashes her face with water so cold it stings. In the cracked mirror, her reflection stares back, pale, battered eyes rimmed red but alive. Still standing. Still capable of fighting for what's hers. She reaches for her phone. It's time to start asking questions. It's just after midnight when Sophia pulls the rental car back onto Maple Street headlights, cutting slow arcs across the familiar curb. The dashboard clock clicks over to 12:07. Every shadow seems to quiver with menace. She parks 2 houses down, kills the engine, and sits in the dark listening to her pulse hammer in her ears. Her old home stands quiet under a thin cloak of moonlight. The for sale sign has fallen over completely, the stake snapped at the base. Wind nudges it along the grass like a drunk trying to remember which way is home. A single porch light burns yellow above the front steps left on by whoever's handling the showings. It makes the windows look like dark watching eyes. Sophia grips the steering wheel. Her palms are slick. She's never broken into anything in her life, not even snuck out past curfew as a teenager. But something ugly and electric is burrowing under her skin, some mix of grief, fury, and bone-deep desperation. Julian took everything. If there's any chance he missed something, any clue, any piece of their father left behind, she has to find it. She pops the trunk, pulls out a small flashlight, and slips it into her coat pocket. Then she starts down the sidewalk, gravel crunching under her low boots. Her breath hangs in front of her ghostly in the cold. At the side gate, she pauses. The old latch is still there, rusted but functional. She lifts it gently, wincing at the squeak. The backyard is wilder than she's ever seen it. Weeds and tangled blackberry canes choke the fence line. The garden beds, where her father once grew tomatoes and snap peas, are now just mounds of brittle stalks. The back porch sags visibly, boards gray and splintering. Sophia tries the sliding door. Locked. Figures. But the window just beside it, the one above the washer and dryer, has always had a warped latch. She presses up on it. With a reluctant pop it gives. Her heart jackhammers. She pushes the pane up all the way, then hauls herself awkwardly through landing with a thump in the dark laundry nook. Dust billows up around her, clogging her throat. For a moment she stays crouched, listening for any alarms, any angry shouts. Nothing. Just the refrigerator humming on the other side of the wall. Some real estate agent must have left the power running for showings. She stands, slowly wiping her hands on her jeans. The kitchen beyond is eerie in the half-light. The table's gone, the walls bear faint ghost ovals where family photos once hung. She sweeps her flashlight over the floor. Faint marks are still visible in the linoleum where her father's heavy work boots used to scuff when he came in after long days at construction sites. Sophia moves carefully down the hall past the living room, also stripped bare. No sagging leather couch, no old quilt thrown over the back, no smell of cedar from the built-in shelves. Her throat tightens, but she presses on. She doesn't know exactly what she's looking for. Maybe a forgotten file box, maybe a handwritten will, maybe just some last piece of her father's life Julian was too careless to find. At the end of the hall is the door to the small storage room, what they'd always called the shop. Her father kept old tools in there, cans of stained spare tiles. It was his little sanctuary. Sophia flips the handle. It's stiff but not locked. She steps inside. The air smells faintly of oil and mildew. Dust motes swirl in the narrow beam of her flashlight. Shelves line the walls, mostly empty now except for a few stray screws and an abandoned tape measure. But the floor her eyes narrow. There's a section near the back where the boards look off, slightly lifted at the edges like warped plywood. Sophia kneels, runs her fingers along the seams. One edge wiggles under pressure. Her breath catches. Could Julian have overlooked something right under his feet? She grips the board and pulls. It comes up with a reluctant groan. Beneath it, instead of dirt or cement, there's a shallow cavity lined with what looks like old tar paper, and resting there, a weathered envelope with her name on it in her father's unmistakable handwriting. For a second, her head spins. She sits back hard on her heels, clutching the letter. The entire room seems to contract and expand around her. A tear splashes onto the envelope, smudging the loop of the H in Sophia. With shaking fingers, she opens it. Inside is a single sheet folded carefully, and something small and metal that drops into her lap, a slim silver key attached to a tiny engraved tag. She unfolds the letter and forces herself to read through watery eyes. My dearest Sophia, if you're reading this, it likely means I'm no longer there to guide you, and I hate that thought more than I can say. I built everything I could with these hands, houses, apartments, our life, but I also built this plan for you, knowing there are people who might try to take it, even people we love. This key and tag are for a safety deposit box at Zurich Bank House under account code ZR54811. Inside, you'll find what I've kept as insurance for your future. If ever things grow dark, if ever you need to start again, that's where you'll find your light. Trust yourself, I always did. All my love, Dad. Sophia reads it again and again, the words blurring, then snapping into sharp, painful focus. Zurich, a Swiss safety deposit box. Her father, who had spent his life laying bricks and pouring concrete, had somehow thought ahead far enough to stash something for her in one of the most secure banking systems in the world. She closes her eyes, pressing the paper to her chest. Her father hadn't left her completely alone after all. Even dead, he was still trying to protect her from the world and from Julian. The tiny metal tag attached to the key has a laser-etched code that matches the letter ZR54811. She runs her thumb over it, feels the cool grooves. For a moment, Sophia is flooded by a memory so vivid she almost sobs. She's 6, sitting on her dad's shoulders, watching fireworks burst over the lake on the 4th of July. His voice is warm and scratchy in her ear, saying, "Don't ever let anyone dim your spark, kiddo. You're meant to shine bigger than all this." Sophia takes a long, shuddering breath. She folds the letter carefully, tucks it inside her jacket, and puts the key in her jeans pocket where it digs against her hip, solid and reassuring. Then she replaces the floorboard, pressing it down until it sits flush again, erasing any sign she was ever there. Standing in the center of the tiny workshop, she looks around one last time. The walls feel closer now, less like a tomb and more like a cocoon about to split open. She turns off her flashlight, slips back through the hall, out the kitchen, and climbs through the laundry window. Outside, the night seems to welcome her with a hush. As she walks back to her car, the key in her pocket feels impossibly heavy, and for the first time in days, Sophia's steps feel driven by something other than grief. Not vengeance, not yet, but a rising certainty that she still had a future and maybe even the power to rewrite how this story ends. Sophia barely sleeps that night. After returning from the old house with the letter and the key, she lies on the stiff motel bed, fully clothed, the envelope clutched to her chest like a talisman. Every time she closes her eyes, fragments of her father's handwriting burst against the dark, the words, "Trust yourself. I always did," echoing through her skull until it almost hurts. By dawn, she's made her decision. She can't stay in Seattle, can't haunt these streets waiting for Julian to emerge from whatever rock he's crawled under so she can confront him empty-handed. If her father left something for her in Zurich, it means he expected exactly this betrayal, or at least feared it enough to prepare. And she won't let that preparation rot in a Swiss vault while her life disintegrates here. So she packs. There's not much left. 2 neat business dresses, a couple of blouses, 1 pair of heels, the jeans and boots. She's wearing a toothbrush, half a bottle of cheap drugstore perfume. She lines them up on the faded motel bedspread, surveying them like pieces of evidence from a life already half abandoned. She finds a small velvet box tucked into a shoe. Inside her mother's opal earrings, a slim silver bracelet that once belonged to her grandmother, and the delicate chain with the tiny star pendant her father gave her on her 16th birthday. Jewelry that had always seemed too precious to wear daily, that she'd kept for special occasions. She turns them over in her palm, the metal catching the dim light. Her throat closes tight. Sophia slips the chain around her neck, letting the star rest just above her collarbone. Then she tucks the earrings and bracelet back in the box and snaps it shut with a crisp finality. The pawn shop on 45th is a squat square building painted in ugly, desperate orange. Bars crisscross the grimy windows. A neon guitar flickers erratically in the corner, buzzing like an angry wasp. Inside, the air smells of dust, stale coffee, and faint despair. The man behind the counter wears a threadbare t-shirt that strains over his belly. He doesn't look up when she comes in, just grunts. What'll it be while continuing to fiddle with a small mountain of tangled gold chains? Sophia places the velvet box on the glass case between them and flips it open. Her hands want to shake. She forces them still. The man's eyes sharpen immediately. He sets down the chains and picks up one of the opal earrings, squinting through a jeweler's loupe. Then he lifts the bracelet, weighing it in his palm. After a moment, he pushes his glasses up on his forehead and exhales through his teeth. Nice pieces. Sentimental value will hurt more than the payout, but you know that already. Sophia's lips twitch into something almost like a smile. I'm not here for poetry, just a fair price. He snorts, tapping some quick figures into an ancient calculator. It lets out a beep so shrill she flinches. 1800, he says finally. It's a gut punch. Some small part of her had been hoping irrationally, stupidly, that this sacrifice might bankroll a real safety net. 1800 feels laughable. Still she nods. I'll take it. The man slides her the cash in worn 20s. As she folds the bills, something inside her feels like it's snapping loose. The jewelry is gone. Her mother's memory, her grandmother's legacy, traded for a thin stack of crumpled paper. Her father would probably understand, but the girl she used to be wants to sob. At SeaTac, she buys a one-way ticket to Zurich on her phone, paying extra for the earliest possible departure. When the airline agent at the counter hands her the boarding pass, her hand hovers a second too long on the slip of paper. Zurich. It doesn't even feel real, just a word, a promise her father wrote into existence before he died. The security line inches forward. Sophia stands among strangers, clutching laptops and rolling suitcases, listening to snippets of conversations in languages she doesn't recognize. A woman behind her is arguing with someone on FaceTime, voice rising. A kid nearby hums under his breath, feet dancing on the floor. Everything feels too bright, too loud, too alive for how hollow she is inside. At the gate, she buys a bottle of overpriced water and a granola bar she doesn't touch. She watches planes taxi in and out, metal birds glinting under flat gray light. Eventually, they call boarding for her flight. She finds her seat by rope buckles in and stares at the back of the headrest in front of her. The engines roar to life and Sophia's stomach dips as the plane hurtles down the runway. She squeezes her eyes shut. In that darkness, memory swells up unbidden. Her father sitting on the floor of their living room, his back against the couch blueprint spread out like a fan around him. He's explaining to Julian how load-bearing walls work, using 2 soda cans and a paper book to demonstrate weight distribution. Julian is 12, half listening, mostly playing with the dog. Sophia stands in the doorway, 16, and annoyed by the math lesson until her dad looks up and grins. Architect or accountant, baby, all roads lead to this. Learn how to hold your own weight. Somewhere over the Atlantic, Sophia dozes off. Her cheek rests against the cold plastic window. Outside, moonlight dances on the wing. In the dream, she's running barefoot through a field of lavender that stretches forever in every direction. The air is thick with the sweet, heady scent. Her toes brush soft blossoms. Bees hum lazily nearby, unconcerned. When she turns, her father is there. He's young again, hair still dark, shoulders broad and sunburned. Dad, she whispers. Her voice is fragile, tentative, like if she says it too loudly, he'll vanish. But he just smiles that slow, crooked grin that always made her feel like the smartest, funniest, most precious person alive. He reaches out and takes her hand. His palm is warm and rough, exactly how she remembers. They walk together through the lavender sunlight, breaking across them in gold sheets. Birds wheel overhead. Sophia starts to say something, maybe an apology, maybe a thank you, but he just squeezes her fingers. Don't be scared, Soph. You've got this, more than you know. She tries to hold on tighter, to keep pace with him. But the harder she grips, the more his hand seems to slip through hers like he's made of smoke. Wait, Dad, don't go, please. He stops, turning to face her. There are tears in his eyes now, mirroring hers. He leans in and kisses her forehead. When he pulls back, his shape is already blurring at the edges. You'll shine bigger than all this, he murmurs. Bigger than me. Then he's gone, dissolved into the lavender, into the wind. The field goes on without him, endless and aching. Sophia wakes with a jerk. Her heart is racing, her skin damp with sweat. The cabin is dim window shades down, most passengers sleeping. Her tray table still holds the untouched water and granola bar. For a long minute, she just sits there, breathing shallowly, eyes fixed on the seam of the seat ahead. Then she touches the star pendant at her throat. It's warm against her skin, like it's absorbed her fevered dreams. She whispers so quietly even she can barely hear it, "I'm gonna try, Dad, I swear." When the plane finally begins its descent, Sophia peers out the window. Below, Zurich unrolls in a patchwork of slate roofs, green hills, glinting water. The Alps rise ghostly on the horizon, as if conjured from another world entirely. It should feel like landing in a strange foreign place. But oddly it doesn't. It feels like the first step into the story her father began writing for her long before she understood any of it. Maybe even before she was born. As the wheels touch down with a soft bump, Sophia closes her eyes and holds tight to that tiny sliver of hope. A vault in this city holds whatever future her father stashed away for her. Maybe security, maybe secrets, maybe just one more clue in a long trail of heartbreak and caution, but it's hers to claim. Her fists tighten in her lap. She doesn't know how yet, doesn't know the Swiss banking system or how to navigate all the codes and protocols, but she's going to find that deposit box. And when she does, she'll finally know if her father's faith in her was more than a dying man's desperate dream. The next morning, Sophia stands in front of a soaring glass building on Bahnhofstrasse, gripping the small card with the Zurich Bankhouse crest embossed in gold. Her breath clouds faintly in the cool air. Trams rattle by, cyclists weave around taxis, and pedestrians in elegant wool coats stream past her, none of them having the faintest idea that she's standing here with the key to a mystery that could change or implode everything. For a dizzy second, she almost turns around. Her father's voice is a distant echo in her head. "Trust yourself. I always did." She swallows hard, steps inside. The lobby is hushed, muffled by plush rugs and marble that seems to swallow sound. A chandelier scatters shards of morning light across polished counters. Two men in suits speak in low German by the concierge desk, their heads bent close. Sophia approaches the reception counter, her heart a live thing fluttering madly. The woman behind the desk greets her with professional warmth. "Guten Morgen. How may I assist you today?" Sophia clears her throat, trying to coax her voice into steadiness. I have business here. A safety deposit. My father arranged it years ago. This is the tag and the key." She places them carefully on the desk. The woman studies the tag ZR54811, then looks up, her eyes flickering with recognition. There's a subtle tightening around her mouth, a momentary pause that might have gone unnoticed by anyone less desperate than Sophia. Then the woman nods crisply. "Of course, Miss Carter. If you'll allow me one moment to notify our private banking team." She types something rapidly into her terminal. A small green light blinks twice. Sophia feels her pulse trip over itself. Moments later, a man emerges through a discreet door. He's in his mid-50s, sharply tailored with salt and pepper hair and an air of unshakable composure. He greets Sophia with a slight bow. "Miss Carter, my name is Herr Roth. Your father was a valued client of ours, if you'll come this way." He gestures her toward a sleek hallway lined with discreet security cameras and softly lit art niches. Sophia follows, clutching her purse so tightly her knuckles whiten. Every footstep seems deafening in the quiet. At the end of the hall, Roth unlocks a heavy wooden door that swings open on whisper-quiet hinges. Inside is a small, richly paneled room with a thick velvet chair and a mahogany table. Along one wall is a bank of secure drawers, each discreetly numbered. Roth gestures for her to sit. "I'll retrieve your box personally. Please wait here." Sophia lowers herself into the chair, heart thundering. Her hands twitch against her lap. A distant clock ticks off each second with maddening deliberation. She finds herself whispering under her breath, "Please, Dad, please let this be something real." When Roth returns, he's carrying a brushed steel box about the size of a large briefcase. He places it on the table, then bows slightly. "I will leave you to your privacy, Miss Carter. If you require anything, please press this." He indicates a small call button near the door, then withdraws the door, clicking shut behind him. Sophia just stares at the box for a moment, throat thick. Her father's ghost seems to hover beside her, not the warm dream version from the plane, but the solid man who'd taught her to drive stick shift in a weedy parking lot, who'd let her stand on his boots to dance at the kitchen counter. With a shaking breath, she inserts the slim key into the lock. It turns with a satisfying, deeply final snick. She lifts the lid. Inside is a neat stack of leather folders tied with a faded blue ribbon, and under them a heavy envelope bulging with papers. A scent rises paper, an old cedar so startlingly familiar that tears spring instantly to her eyes. Her father's home office had always smelled just like this. With trembling fingers, she unties the ribbon. The first folder holds a thick sheaf of official documents, all in Spanish and English, side by side, bristling with embossed seals. Across the top, in bold type, Acta Constitutiva, Sociedad Minera del Norte Argentino S.A. Her brain struggles to process it. A mining company. She flips through pages of legal descriptions, maps dotted with small red X's, geological reports dense with technical data. Then a line jumps out. Interest ownership, Richard Carter, 47%. Her father owned nearly half of a lithium mining company in Argentina. Her father, who'd spent his whole life telling them how proud he was to build things brick by brick, how he'd once dreamed of studying geology, but dropped out of community college to work construction when she was born, who'd always insisted money wasn't everything, who must have quietly amassed this holding, never breathing a word. Sophia's hands pressed to her mouth. This wasn't just a modest insurance policy. Even at a conservative estimate, this ownership stake could be worth hundreds of millions given global lithium demand. The realization hits her so hard she nearly drops the folder. Her eyes skitter to the envelope. She slides it open and a pile of handwritten letters spills out. Pages and pages in her father's neat blocky script, the same he used to jot grocery lists and silly refrigerator notes. The top page begins simply, "My girl, if you're sitting here, then you've found what I couldn't risk leaving in Seattle, and I'm sorry for that. I didn't want this weight on your shoulders so young, but you were always sharper than me, Sophia. Always had that spark. I didn't trust the people circling us, not just the strangers, developers, legal sharks, but Julian too. He's your brother, and I love him, but I know he's hungry in ways that scare me. He wants easy things. This kind of fortune could ruin him, or worse, get him tangled up with people who'd bury us both if it meant profit. I started buying into this mining venture before you were even out of high school. Kept it quiet, partly out of fear, partly because it was supposed to be your clean slate one day. Something that couldn't be touched by property taxes or a divorce court or even family greed. This is yours, Sophia. I built it so you'd never have to crawl for anyone. Be careful, sweetheart. Be smart. Trust slow. Love hard, but protect your heart. And if Julian ever shows you that hungry look, the one your mother used to warn me about, you run the other way. All my love, Dad." Her vision swims. For a long moment, she simply presses the paper to her lips, eyes squeezed shut, trying to anchor herself in the steady thump of her own heartbeat. A heat rises behind her ribs, grief, shock, relief, guilt, all tangled together. Her father had known, had prepared, had quietly built a world where she could stand untouchable if only she dared step into it. Letter after letter follows. Notes on meetings with Argentine officials, scribbled warnings about certain businessmen who played dirtier than their suits, led on sweet asides about how proud he was when she got her first internship, even a list of books he thought she should read on The Shortness of Life by Seneca. Anything by Bourdain, learn from both. And finally, tucked at the bottom, a small index card with a single line in capital letters. "Don't let Julian or anyone else touch this. They'll ruin it. Remember who you are." Sophia leans back in the chair, clutching the pile of letters to her chest. Her breath comes in shallow pulls. For the first time since she'd stood on her old porch staring at the for sale sign, she doesn't feel quite so small. The cold, untouchable machine Julian tried to build out of her, a girl alone without options, just malfunctioned spectacularly. Her father had built her a fortress out of lithium and stubborn hope. She places everything back into the box with care that borders on reverence. Then she presses the call button. Herr Roth returns immediately, as if waiting just outside. "Ms. Carter," he says gently, "shall we prepare to have these documents formally certified for your control? Your father left extremely clear instructions." Sophia meets his eyes. There's a new steel in hers, born not from arrogance, but from the painful revelation that she was never as alone or as powerless as she believed. "Yes," she says, her voice low but unbreakable. "It's time I take what my father built and protect it from exactly the kind of people he feared." And as Roth gives a small, approving bow, the weight that's been crushing her for weeks finally starts to lift, replaced by something far sharper, more dangerous, and infinitely more necessary. Resolve. When Sophia's plane touches down again in Seattle, it's just past 9 p.m. The city is a cold wash of rain-streaked windows and neon puddles. She steps onto the jet bridge with a different weight in her chest, a hard-coiled certainty that wasn't there when she left. Zurich has done something to her. Maybe it's the gravity of hundreds of millions buried in a mining venture, Or maybe it's the echo of her father's handwriting telling her to be careful to trust slow. But mostly it's knowing exactly who she's protecting herself from. Julian. She checks into a business hotel downtown this time, clean, sterile, safely anonymous. As she unzips her suitcase on the neatly made bed, the box from Zurich Bank House sits beside her like a silent ally. She hasn't let it out of her sight since the vault door first swung open. Even now, she touches it compulsively, running her fingers along the brushed steel edges. It contains not just wealth, but a story of caution, foresight, love, and the raw acknowledgement that blood ties aren't always protection. Sophia powers up her laptop. The motel's sluggish Wi-Fi gives way to the hotel's high speed, and within seconds she's staring at her father's old accounts, the ones that should still be holding domestic real estate revenue rental income dividends from modest construction partnerships. Money her father meant to keep the local family assets afloat. The balances stare back at her zero, a few hundred zero. Sophia's hands start to sweat against the trackpad. She double-checks the routing history. All of it tens of thousands in quarterly dividends, rent payments that should have been padding a cushion for Diane's care. Julian's tuition from years ago still rolling in as deferred legacy payments, systematically siphoned into 2 checking accounts, both recently closed. The last transfers went through about 6 weeks ago. She closes her eyes and forces herself to breathe. This isn't just Julian playing reckless with cash. This is calculated. He's cleaned out everything he had easy access to. Her stomach curdles when she realizes Diane, their stepmother, likely has no clue she's now dependent on the mercy of whoever is holding the purse strings, and Julian, by all appearances, has never been merciful. Sophia opens a new tab, searches his name along with the town's local records. Nothing new, but an instinct sharper now, newly honed from the vault in Zurich, and the warnings her father left pushes her to broaden the search. Julian Carter of Miami. The results feel like a gut punch. A series of tagged social photos on public accounts. Julian with sun-bleached hair draped in open linen shirts that show off a new gold chain. A woman Sophia vaguely recognizes as Kara from their step-family barbecues perched in his lap on the deck of a boat. Bottles of champagne. Designer sunglasses. A caption that screams oblivious excess. Living our best life. Miami nights, how blessed. Her throat goes tight. She clicks through more posts, pool parties at rooftop hotels, gambling chips stacked high on green felt Kara showing off Louis Vuitton bags. The latest is from just 4 days ago, a boomerang of Julian tossing money into the air, while Kara squeals with delight. Her father's money. Money meant to safeguard Diane's home, to pay property taxes, utilities, insurance on rentals, all of it reduced to confetti in some South Beach suite. Sophia slams the laptop shut. Her pulse is a live wire thrumming with something hotter and uglier than fear. Rage. She paces the small hotel room, every step a question that carves into her like glass. How far will Julian go? What if he tries to touch the Swiss accounts, or worse, tries to find leverage against her directly? Her phone is heavy in her palm. She scrolls to her father's old contact list, fingers trembling. Near the end, a number saved simply as Leon. No last name. But under notes, her father had written ex-financial crimes solid, if things ever get complicated. Sophia taps the call button before she can overthink. The line clicks, then rings, once, twice, 4 times. She almost hangs up. Then a gravelly voice, yeah. She swallows. Hi, I'm Sophia Carter, Richard Carter's daughter. I found your number in my father's old phone. He said, well, he wrote down I should call you if things ever got complicated. They're complicated. There's a pause. Then the sound of a chair scraping like someone sitting up. Your dad was a good man. Always paid on time, didn't ask me to do anything dirty. What's happening? Sophia forces her voice steady. My stepbrother Julian has siphoned nearly all domestic assets my father left. He's in Miami blowing through it with his girlfriend. I need someone who can quietly find out how much he's actually moved, what debts he's racked up, who he's talking to. Someone who knows how to look under rocks. Another silence, then a short grunt. Meet me tomorrow. Cafe Santorini, Pike Place, 10 a.m. Don't bring anyone and don't pay by card there. The line goes dead. Sophia exhales shakily. For the first time since she opened her father's letter under the loose floorboard, she feels a thin filament of power curling through her chest. The next morning dawns gray and brittle, the kind of sky that looks like it might shatter if you touch it. Sophia wraps herself in a black trench coat, pulls her hair into a severe knot. No makeup, nothing flashy. She doesn't want to be remembered. Cafe Santorini is tucked between a fishmonger and a flower stall, the windows fogged with condensation. Inside smells like roasted espresso beans and cardamom. She spots a man alone at the back mid-50s square build, wearing an old bomber jacket and a watch that looks like it's survived wars. His eyes find hers immediately and he gives a faint nod. She slides into the seat opposite, Leon. He sips his coffee. Your father always ordered the same thing. Black 2 sugars. You look a bit like him around the eyes. Sophia doesn't know what to do with that, so she just opens her bag, takes out a slim folder. This is what I've compiled so far. Banking activity, a list of known properties that Julian might have tried to leverage. Some social posts. I want to know everything, where he's getting cash, who he's meeting, what else he might have transferred that hasn't popped yet. Leon flips through it, nods once sharply. I can get eyes on him in Miami. I'll need 5 days minimum. After that, we can decide next moves. Sophia forces herself to ask the question clawing at her gut. How aggressive do you get? His face doesn't change, but his eyes, pale blue, surprisingly gentle, fix on her. Not my job to break kneecaps. I find what's there. Sometimes I talk to people, sometimes I lean a little, but it's clean. If you want scary, I know scary. But your father never did. Relief, gratitude, a fresh slice of fear. It all tangles in her chest. I want clean, she says finally. I want facts that hold up if I have to take him to court, or worse if he tries to come after me. Leon studies her. Then a small grin cracks his weathered face. Good girl. Your dad'd be glad to see you taking the smart path. He stands, tucks her folder into his battered messenger bag. Give me a week. Keep your phone on silent when I call, never text details. And keep that pretty head down. You've got to look like a banker's next mark if you're not careful. Then he's gone, moving through the cafe crowd with a subtle efficiency that makes him almost disappear. Back in her hotel room, Sophia sits on the edge of the bed, staring out at the drizzle-slick streets far below. Her phone is a dead weight next to her. The Zurich vault box sits locked inside her suitcase, which she's chained to the bed frame with a slim steel bike cable. A silly safeguard maybe, but it lets her sleep at night. Or try to. Because sleep is a treacherous thing now. When she closes her eyes, she keeps seeing Julian's laughing face on that boat in Miami, Kara wrapped around him, champagne spraying in the sun. It twists in her stomach. Not just because of the betrayal, though, that's bad enough, but because she still remembers them as children. Julian begging her to make peanut butter sandwiches because he was too little to reach the counter, giggling as she chased him through sprinklers. She remembers thinking, this is who I'll have when Dad's gone. Julian will be my family. Instead, he's become the very threat their father spent a lifetime preparing for. Her phone buzzes. For a heartbeat, adrenaline kicks through her veins. Then she sees it's just a local news notification. A development deal breaking ground on the south end of the city land her father once looked at buying. That was supposed to be their next project together. She almost laughs, then almost cries. Sophia stands crosses to the small desk and pulls out a piece of hotel stationery. She starts writing without quite knowing why. Maybe to steady her thoughts, maybe to keep from unraveling entirely. Julian, I don't know when it happened. When you stopped being the boy who begged me to save him from monsters under the bed and became the monster instead. Maybe you were always two things. Maybe we all are. Dad tried to warn me. Tried to warn you too. I think he hoped we'd save each other, but you chose differently. I'll protect what he left, even if it means protecting it from you. She folds the note, slips it into her wallet, a reminder, a vow. Outside, the rain has turned to a thin mist curling around street lamps like breath. Somewhere in Miami, Julian is probably laughing over another drink, never suspecting the quiet blade that's now turning his way. Sophia presses her palm flat against the window. Her reflection looks back older, somehow sharper, her father's eyes. And in them a promise that this story isn't over yet, not by a long shot. The email comes 3 days later at exactly 2:14 a.m. Sophia's phone lights up on the nightstand, its faint glow carving her hotel room into eerie blue slices. For a moment, she just stares at it, half asleep, disoriented. Then she sees the sender, Leon Alvarez. The subject line is only 2 words. It begins. She sits up so fast her shoulder cracks. Her pulse stutters. Hands trembling slightly, she enters the password and clicks the attachment, a compressed folder named Julian Digs 1-zip. It's almost mundane in its plainness, this tiny icon that might as well be ticking like a bomb. Her laptop whirs as the files decompress. The progress bar crawls. By the time it pings complete, she's nearly breathless with nerves. Inside, dozens of JPEGs, a few short MP4s, and a PDF labeled Summary, Initial Phase. She clicks the first photo. Julian stands outside a neon-drenched casino, one hand in the pocket of tailored cream slacks, the other holding a glass of something electric green. His smile is loose tipsy, His eyes glint with the kind of easy arrogance she remembers from teenage parties, only sharper now, calcified by money he didn't earn. Next image, he's inside, perched at a blackjack table under crystalline chandeliers. Kara is next to him, all bronzed skin and expensive white silk, giggling as she rakes stacks of chips toward herself. Julian leans in, mouth pressed to her ear, grinning like the devil himself. Sophia's stomach twists. She flips to the next Julian, exchanging a brief handshake with a man in a dark suit. Leon has tagged the man's face with a yellow arrow and a tiny label, Harlan Bexley J.D. Suspended license. Prior investigation for escrow fraud. Another photo shows Bexley slipping Julian what looks like a slim envelope outside the casino valet stand. Julian tucks it inside his jacket as Kara adjusts her diamond pendant and laughs at something she's texting. Sophia drags a shaking hand over her mouth. Her brother is laundering money. Maybe helping Bexley wash illicit gains through casino markers or offshore shells. It's all speculation for now, of course. But Leon's short summary file lays it out in sparse, methodical prose. Subject: Julian Carter observed frequenting known laundering channels. Casino used has prior flagged SAR suspicious activity report filings with FinCEN. Subject maintains presence in VIP rooms exceeding typical casual player thresholds. Companion Kara Weston appears to act as co-mule, accepting chips, cashing out separately. Meeting with disbarred attorney Harlan Bexley suggests either fraudulent property purchases or offshore structuring. Strong indication of additional conspirators. Recommend extended shadowing plus digital trace of related accounts. Sophia reads it twice, 3 times, her brain buzzing, her body so tense it feels like she might snap a rib just by inhaling. She clicks through more photos. Julian in a cabana by an infinity pool, sunglasses perched low on his nose, holding a phone to his ear. Another where he's slipping folded bills to a hostess. One grainy night vision shot of him slipping out a side door with Bexley, faces tight, the air between them practically humming with conspiracy. Then the videos. The first is short. Leon's camera is across the street from an upscale steakhouse. Julian emerges with Bexley and a short, burly man in a bright pink polo shirt. They stand near the valet, talking fast, all 3 checking over their shoulders. Julian passes something, could be a flash drive, could be cash. Then the 3 clasp hands, each wearing that odd, strained grin men wear when they've just agreed on something dirty. Another clip shows Julian at a club table. Kara's practically in his lap. A hostess delivers a towering magnum of champagne with sparklers fizzing out of the top. Julian tilts his head back, mouth open, catching the foam as Kara claps. The camera's microphone barely picks it up, but you can hear Julian shout something to his friends. Sophia rewinds it twice. Finally, she catches it. Rich old man's funeral was the best thing that ever happened to me. Her hand flies to her mouth, tears spring hot and instantaneous. Her father reduced to a lucky break, a cash windfall, the punchline of some grotesque Miami party joke. She tries to breathe around the lump in her throat, but it's impossible. The room blurs. When she forces herself to look again, the next image is a still from inside a casino's private gaming salon. Julian has his arm draped over Kara, who's showing off a giant diamond bracelet to 2 other women. On the table before them is a pyramid of poker chips, so large it seems like a prop from a movie set. Julian is mid-laugh, head thrown back. Someone, maybe Bexley, is pouring shots. Sophia feels the bile rise. Her father built every dollar of that with calloused hands, missing family barbecues to meet contractors, skipping vacation after vacation. And Julian is using it for high-roller cosplay. For stunts that could wind him in prison, dragging the Carter name through the mud right alongside. She's still sitting there hours later when Leon calls. The phone buzzes in her palm, the screen lighting up with his name. She swallows and answers. Leon. You see the first drop? His voice is dry, calm, matter-of-fact, exactly what she needs. Yes, I don't even know where to start. I thought he was just, an entitled asshole burning through money. But this is criminal. That's what you hired me to confirm. A pause. Sophia, he's not just blowing inheritance. He's dirtying the pipeline. Casinos love guys like him. Easy mark for their own laundering operations. Or he's willfully partnering. Either way, your family's old LLCs tied to real estate back here are still linked. Means if feds ever do kick down the door, your father's old companies could get flagged in crossfire. Sophia presses a palm to her forehead. Her pulse is racing so fast it feels like it's behind her eyes. What do I do? What would you tell me to do if I was your own kid or something? Leon lets out a slow breath. Keep me funded, let me keep following. Next week I'll start on deeper pulls, shell companies wire logs, see if he's hiding more. Meanwhile, you set aside anything emotionally binding. That means old guilt sibling loyalty. He's not your brother right now. He's a liability who could pull your name under with him if he sinks. Your father didn't stash money in Zurich because he thought Julian would steward it wisely. He did it to firewall you. Sophia nods even though he can't see it. Okay, I can do that. Good, now get some sleep. You'll need a clear head. I'll ping you in 3 days with another drop. She ends the call and sits very still in the dim hotel light. The city outside is waking up early. Delivery trucks rumble past brakes, hissing taillights glowing through the mist. She feels brittle, overstretched, like if anyone so much as looks at her too kindly, she'll dissolve. Her father once told her that grief isn't always tears. Sometimes it's rage. Sometimes it's the cold vacuum that forms when you realize someone you love can hurt you worse than any stranger ever could. Sophia opens the PDF summary again. At the very end, Leon has added a single sentence, no flourish, no drama. Recommend prepping asset protection strategy now. She stares at it for a long time. Then she opens a fresh document on her laptop, starts a list. Move Zurich documents to secondary secure site. Establish firewall counsel for potential litigation. Research asset protection trusts. Compile all evidence for future criminal referral if needed. When she finishes, her hands hover over the keyboard. She types one last line, not for the lawyers or the bank, for herself. Stop hoping Julian will come to his senses. That brother is gone. At dawn, she stands by the hotel window and watches the sun try to claw its way through a stubborn blanket of gray. Her reflection stares back at her in the glass-pale eyes, swollen mouth set in a line her father once wore when he was preparing to sue a contractor who cut corners. She presses her fingertips to the cold glass. Somewhere out there, Julian is probably sleeping off champagne and neon, with Kara draped across his chest, dreaming of new jewelry he'll buy her on someone else's sweat. But Sophia is done being the sweet sister, done being the last line of credit he thinks he can tap. The game's changed. The next move is hers. And it will be played with a ruthlessness even Julian won't see coming. The decision to file comes on a rain-lashed Thursday morning. Sophia sits at a long walnut conference table across from Marcia Feldman, her new attorney, a sharp-featured woman with eyes like polished steel. Beside Sophia, Leon lounges back in his chair, deceptively relaxed arms folded across his chest. His presence is a silent promise you're not doing this alone. Marcia flips through a thick binder of documents. Each page is a dagger wire, transfers from Julian's shadow accounts, photos of the forged sale contract casino activity flagged by Leon's Miami contacts. The forensic specialist's signature confirming the Sophia Carter on the house deed isn't a match. Marcia taps her nail against that signature, the faintest curve of a smirk on her lips. If this was a TV drama, I'd say it's over already, but reality drags out the knives slower. It's enough to bury him in civil court, though, and if the DA decides to piggyback for criminal fraud, your brother's days of poolside magnums are finished. Sophia exhales shakily. The inside of her mouth tastes like copper. So what's next? Marcia leans forward. We're filing in King County, petition for financial accounting fraud and conversion of assets. We'll start with injunctive relief, to freeze whatever he hasn't already burned. I want to hit him hard before he moves anything else offshore. I'll coordinate with a local council in Florida for service there. Leon's gravelly voice cuts in, means he's going to panic, might even reach out, or his shark of a lawyer will. Sophia nods. Her hands clench in her lap. Good, let them. I'm done waiting for the moral version of Julian to show up. Marcia pushes the papers across. Sign here. It sets the entire machine in motion. Sophia's pen trembles only slightly as she presses it to the page. The moment the ink curves into her name, something uncoils inside her, part dread, part grim exhilaration. There's no going back. 2 days later, it happens. She's in the hotel's business center, toggling between spreadsheets and an encrypted portal Marcia set up for document uploads when the concierge calls her room. There's a gentleman here to see you. He says he's from the firm Ryman and Trask, representing a Julian Carter. Sophia's throat tightens. She glances around the sterile white cubicle, as if half expecting Julian to leap out from behind the printer. Send him up, she says finally. Her voice is even somehow. She calls Leon immediately. By the time she's back in her suite, Leon is standing by the window, hands in his pockets. He doesn't look relaxed now. He looks like a wolf sniffing the air for blood. The knock comes at 11:03. Marcia arrives not 5 minutes later, hair damp from the downpour heels clicking across the carpet. She gives Sophia a curt nod, then plants herself in the armchair nearest the door. Let's see what your brother's hounds have to say. When the lawyer enters, it's almost comical. He's tall, rail-thin, wearing a suit that's just slightly too glossy with a diamond pinky ring that winks under the room's warm light. He extends a hand to Sophia, which she ignores. Undeterred, he sits, crosses one leg over the other, and rests an alligator leather briefcase on his knee. "Miss Carter, quite the whirlwind you've kicked up." His smile is pure reptile. "I'm Michael Devane, counsel to your brother Julian. We're hoping to avoid an unpleasant circus here." Sophia folds her hands carefully. "It's going to be unpleasant either way. Your client forged my name, emptied our father's legacy, and used it to bankroll crime. I'm well within my rights to expose that." Devane sighs as if she's being petulant about a minor parking ticket. "Look, we all understand emotions run high with family money, but going scorched earth doesn't benefit you. Julian is prepared to offer an amicable division 50-50 of what's left in exchange for a mutual non-disparagement agreement. You both walk away with privacy intact." Leon snorts. 50-50 of what's left after he's dumped it into gambling dens and God knows what else. Marcia leans forward, her eyes slicing through Devane like a scalpel. "You're in my jurisdiction now. I've already filed motions to freeze the local corporate accounts. Your client is looking at asset tracing that'll follow him to the last bottle service receipt. So you can take your hush money settlement and—" Devane holds up a hand, still maddeningly calm. "Or Ms. Feldman, your client can consider the alternative." Julian isn't above telling his side of things to the press. Stories of instability, paranoia, vindictive spending sprees, old family friction, perhaps even some light suggestion of misuse of power of attorney in the years your father was declining. All hypothetical, of course, but enough to muddy the waters. Sophia's stomach plunges. For half a heartbeat, she actually sees the headline, "Heiress suing brother Hyde's own financial irregularities." Her cheeks burn. Then she sees her father's handwriting again. "Trust slow, love hard, protect your heart." And something inside her snaps into diamond-hard clarity. She stands squaring her shoulders. "Let me be perfectly clear. My brother's side of the story won't hold under actual scrutiny, and if he forces me to, I'll bring every investigator, every regulatory body, every DA with a financial crimes unit down on his head. I'll drag him into light so bright he'll wish he'd stayed in whatever Miami gutter he crawled into, so don't confuse my grief with weakness." Devane's mouth tightens, the smile slipping. For the first time, he looks like he's measuring her in earnest. Marcia stands too, planting herself right by Sophia's side. "We're done here." Leon says nothing, just unfolds from the window like a storm cloud, his stare fixed on Devane with lethal indifference. The lawyer shifts back, clears his throat, collects his briefcase. "You'll be hearing from us," he says stiffly. Sophia gives a small, cold nod. Count on it. When the door finally closes behind him, there's a long silence. Sophia's heart still hammers against her ribs like it's trying to break free. Marcia exhales first, an almost approving smirk on her face. "Nicely done," she says. "That speech very courtroom preview. You're tougher than you think." Leon just claps her once on the shoulder, more a solid thump than a gentle pat. "Knew you had it. Your old man would be proud." Sophia laughs, then a choked, exhausted sound, half on the edge of tears. But it's also a laugh that feels earned. She sinks into the couch head, falling back against the cushion. That night, sleep doesn't come easily. Her brain runs on endless loops, Devane's threat about the press, Julian's smiling face in Leon's photos, her own words thrown across the table like knives. But underneath it all is something else, a slow-burning pride. For the first time in years, she didn't let someone bulldoze her with charm or fear or shared history. She sits by the window with a glass of water, watching headlights smear across wet asphalt. In the reflection, her face looks sharper, almost older, not broken, just finally aware of the world's edges. Her phone buzzes. It's a text from Leon. "Good start. Next few days will get nastier. Hold the line." She types back before she can second guess. "Not going anywhere. Let him come." Then on impulse, she scrolls to the photo she took in Zurich, the inside of the vault, the neat rows of documents, her father's letters stacked like sentries. She traces one finger over the screen right above the words he wrote. "Trust yourself." Morning comes with a fresh flood of paperwork. Marcia emails new discovery requests, draft subpoenas, outlines for depositions. There's also a short note. Julian's team has already tried to quash the house deed analysis. It'll fail. Keep your phone close. Sophia prints the email chain and lays it out on the small desk. Each line feels like armor, the paper itself a shield against the chaos Julian's threatening to unleash. Outside her window, the city looks washed clean by last night's rain, the air almost painfully bright. She pours herself a fresh cup of coffee, then sits back, letting the steam hit her face. She's scared she'd be a fool not to be, but she's also something else. Ready to see how far Julian will push. ready to prove her father's trust in her wasn't misplaced. By late afternoon, Leon stops by the hotel again. He drops a small hard drive on the desk with a soft thunk. More wire pulls. Bexley's name pops up again, plus some shady LLCs routing through Panama. Told you it'd get nastier. Sophia stares at the drive. Then she looks up at Leon. Do you ever get used to it? Seeing people you thought were good turn out to be this. His expression softens a fraction. Nope, but you learn it doesn't have to define you. You get to decide if you're the same as them. That's the whole point of standing up now. She turns the hard drive over in her hand. It feels heavy for its size. Then let's keep standing. Leon grins wolfish and approving. That's the girl I want leading this charge. And as the sun dips low over the skyline painting the buildings gold, Sophia feels something deep inside her finally lock into place. She's not just reacting anymore, not just surviving the avalanche Julian set off. She's the one steering it now, and she's going to make damn sure it crashes exactly where it should, right on top of the brother who thought she'd be too weak to ever fight back. The rain has returned with a vengeance, drumming against the high windows of Sophia's temporary apartment like impatient fingers. Outside, the city hunches under the downpour, neon signs smearing themselves into long watercolor streaks across the wet streets. Inside, the air smells faintly of printer toner and bitter coffee. Legal documents carpet the small dining table, spilling across to the chairs and even onto the floor in scattered stacks. Sophia sits among them like a shipwrecked survivor surrounded by flotsam. Her hair is pulled up in a haphazard knot, loose strands sticking to her temples. The collar of her soft navy sweater is bunched from where she's tugged at it absent-mindedly for hours. Her laptop is open but asleep, the screen gone black, reflecting only the restless candle flame on the sideboard. She reaches for a page at random, a notarized statement from Leon's financial contacts summarizing Julian's irregular wire transfers to offshore accounts. The numbers blur. She drops it and picks up another Marcia's preliminary motion to secure an injunction against Julian's disposal of any further family assets. Each paragraph is packed with legal teeth. Each signature line is a little battlefield waiting to be fought over. Sophia presses the heel of her hand into her forehead, trying to drive away the pounding there. Her chest is tight, like her ribs have shrunk 2 sizes overnight. She knows this is right. Knows she's protecting not just herself, but the decades of sweat her father poured into building something solid. And yet she's so desperately, profoundly alone. She pushes the papers aside and stands abruptly pacing the small living room. The floor-to-ceiling windows show only shifting curtains of rain broken by the occasional swipe of headlights far below. Somewhere down there lives continue on in blissful ignorance, couples wrapped around each other in bars, friends laughing under umbrellas, strangers oblivious to the war she's waging just to keep her family name from becoming a punchline in some ugly courthouse transcript. Her mind drifts in jagged involuntary flashes to another night. This one burned into her with cruel permanence. It was nearly midnight when the hospice nurse called. Sophia had been at her small office going over a marketing campaign that now seems laughably trivial. She drove like a demon, every red light feeling like a personal betrayal. By the time she arrived, the nurse was waiting with eyes full of gentle practiced sorrow. "He's still awake," the nurse had whispered, "and asking for you." Sophia tiptoed into the dim room. The lamp by the bed cast everything in soft amber. Her father looked so small under the knitted throw, his once powerful shoulders caved in, skin yellowed and stretched over his collarbones. But when he saw her, his eyes crinkled at the corners, the ghost of that crooked grin flickering to life. "Hey, there she is, my ace." Sophia sank into the chair beside him, grasping his hand. It was still big, still rough with old calluses, though the strength was gone. His thumb made a slow, shaky circle over the back of her hand. "You didn't have to rush," he rasped. "Of course I did," she choked out. "You're the only thing that ever mattered." For a long moment, they just breathed together. The oxygen machine hummed softly. Somewhere down the hall, a TV muttered through the walls. Finally, he turned his head to look at her, fully eyes dark and fiercely clear. "Soph, promise me something." "Anything," she whispered. "Don't let them turn you small. The world, hell, even people who love you wrong, they'll try to shrink you. Stand on your back to see further. Don't let them. I built this whole damn life with bricks and busted knuckles so you'd never have to bow to anybody." A tear slid hot down Sophia's cheek. She tried to laugh, tried to keep it light. "Dad, I'm not exactly a princess. No one's bowing." He squeezed her hand surprisingly hard. "That's not what I mean. Don't let them make you their mule, Soph. Don't carry their debts, their mistakes, their weight. You shine too bright, don't dull it for anyone." She blinks back to the present with a small, choking sob. Her knees give and she drops onto the couch, shoulders curling inward as if to protect something fragile deep in her chest. For a few terrible minutes she just sits there shuddering, pressing her face into her palms. The memory is both knife and salve it cuts, but it's the only thing keeping her from collapsing entirely. When the worst of it passes, Sophia pushes her palms through her hair, staring around at the papers again. Every single page is proof she's trying, that she hasn't simply surrendered to Julian's narrative, to the idea that she's weak or soft or too sentimental to do what must be done. Her eyes catch on one document in particular. It's the formal affidavit Marcia had her sign, swearing under penalty of perjury that Julian forged her signature to sell the family house. She remembers how heavy the pen felt, how her hand trembled just before she pressed it to the paper. Signing your own brother into ruin, it feels like an act so monstrous it should crack the floorboards. But it's not her betrayal, it's his. All she's doing is refusing to carry it for him. Outside, the rain intensifies, smacking against the window in noisy bursts. She watches it without really seeing, lost somewhere half between memory and fear. What if Julian retaliates harder? What if Devane makes good on his threats and dredges up lies so ugly they stain everything? What if the press gets a whiff of Carter family drama, turns it into another salacious story of spoiled heirs clawing at each other over money? Her father would hate that. His name dragged through tabloids, reduced to one more cautionary tale. Sophia hugs herself tighter. Her mind keeps circling back to that last night in hospice. The raw honesty of it. How her father looked more alive in that moment, fierce, protective, utterly unwilling to see her bow, than he had in weeks. "Don't let them turn you small," he'd said. And it was more than just a father's desperate wish. It was a command, the culmination of everything he'd built, every sacrifice he'd made. Not for Julian, not for Diane, for her. Sophia stands abruptly. The ache in her back from hours of sitting sends a sharp ripple through her spine, almost grounding. She crosses to the table, starts collecting the pages into neat piles again. Her movements are sharper, more deliberate. She clips files together, slides them into folders, places them back in her leather portfolio. When she finishes, she sits back down, pulls out a fresh pad of lined paper. In the quiet, the scratch of her pen sounds almost thunderous. "Things I will not let Julian take from me. My father's reputation. The business ethics he taught me. The future he safeguarded with that mining stake. My capacity to love without fear. My name." She stares at the list for a long time, breathing slowly. Then she underlines the last line 3 times, pressing so hard the pen nearly tears through. It's past 3 when she finally turns off the small desk lamp. The room plunges into shadow, lit only by the wash of sodium streetlights outside. Sophia stands by the window again, palm pressed flat to the glass as she watches the rain begin to ease. In the distance, the black sky splits with a thin bolt of lightning illuminating the distant hills for just an instant. She imagines her father there standing with arms crossed, the ghost of a smile on his face, nodding once like he used to when she landed a tough client at work. Pride and expectation all bundled together in that one simple gesture. "I won't let you down," she whispers, fogging the cold glass. "I swear to God, Dad, I'll flip this whole thing upside down before I let him win." Her reflection stares back at her eyes-rimmed, red but steady mouth set in a determined line. For the first time since Julian first started dismantling everything, she doesn't look like a victim or a shell of the hopeful girl who flew to Tokyo on business only weeks ago. She looks like her father's daughter. And maybe, just maybe, like a woman even Julian ought to be very afraid of. The rain finally slows to a soft patter. Sophia steps away from the window, shoulders back. She moves through the small apartment, turning off the last lights, collecting her documents one final time. As she sets them by the door, ready for tomorrow's next round of filings and phone calls, her heart is no longer thudding with fear. It beats with something colder, sharper, resolve. Julian might have counted on her grief, on her softness, on family ties strangling her before she ever found her footing. But he didn't count on this, the quiet, unyielding blade her father forged in her, honed now by betrayal, ready to cut through every last lie until nothing's left but the truth and the ruin Julian built with his own hands. The courthouse is older than Sophia expected, a stern red brick structure with ivy clinging desperately to the east wall. A small throng of reporters mills around the steps, shivering in the cold morning air, clutching paper cups of coffee. Their cameras swing instantly as soon as Julian's sleek black BMW purrs to the curb. Sophia watches from the top of the steps, heart a slow, deliberate thud in her chest. Her attorney Marcia stands beside her, face carved from stone. Leon looms just behind them, sunglasses hiding his eyes though the sky is dull and gray. Julian steps out of the car like he's arriving at a movie premiere. Even here, he's manicured to perfection, navy suit hugging his broad shoulders, hair artfully tousled, gold watch catching the pale light. Kara trails after him in a tight burgundy dress, smiling nervously at the press. Julian, on the other hand, revels in the attention. He pauses for the cameras, adjusting his cufflinks, giving them that lopsided grin Sophia remembers from teenage house parties, the one that always meant trouble. A reporter calls out, "Mr. Carter, any comment on your sister's allegations of fraud?" Julian's grin widens. He tosses his head lightly, giving the cameras his best angle. Family fights ugly sometimes. Siblings squabble, I'm sure we'll sort this all out. Then his eyes dart upward. Find Sophia. He gives a tiny, mocking salute, a private little gesture. The implication is painfully clear. Still think you're going to beat me, Soph? Sophia's stomach churns, but she doesn't look away. She plants her feet, lifts her chin. Marcia murmurs beside her, "Let him showboat. It'll play poorly when the evidence hits. Cameras remember arrogance." Inside the courtroom hums with hushed tension. Wooden pews creak as spectators lean in, trying to catch every detail. The bailiff calls the case Carter v. Carter petition for injunctive relief, preliminary findings on fraud and financial misconduct. Sophia sits rigid at the petitioner's table, a neat stack of exhibits in front of her. Marcia flips calmly through her notes. Across the aisle, Julian reclines in his chair, smirking. Devane leans over, whispering something that makes Julian bark a short laugh. Then Julian glances over at Sophia, arches one eyebrow, and mouths clear as day. "You're embarrassing yourself." Her hands tighten into fists beneath the table. Leon places a broad palm over hers, steadying a silent weight that says wait. Let it come. The judge, a silver-haired woman with a reputation for merciless efficiency, scans the docket. Her gaze flicks from Julian to Sophia to the paperwork before her. "All right, Ms. Feldman, you're up." Marcia rises, her voice crisp and direct. "Your Honor, we are here today seeking immediate injunctive relief to prevent further dissipation of family assets by Mr. Julian Carter, who we allege fraudulently misappropriated funds and falsified documents, specifically forging my client's signature to effect the premature sale of primary family property. We submit extensive documentary evidence, expert handwriting analysis, and transaction histories showing rapid liquidation of said assets into personal accounts." Julian makes a show of yawning hand to his mouth, earning a small ripple of uncomfortable laughter from the gallery. Sophia's face flushes hot. Marcia doesn't even pause. Additionally, we have a surprise submission today recently obtained through private investigative efforts that goes directly to Mr. Carter's knowledge and intent. Devane snaps to attention, eyes narrowing. "Objection to any undisclosed materials." "It's within pre-trial discovery supplement window," Marcia counters smoothly. "We'll submit digital copies to opposing counsel and the clerk immediately." The judge lifts a brow. "Proceed, Ms. Feldman, but I'll reserve ruling on admissibility until I've reviewed it." Leon stands. From his jacket, he produces a slim USB drive. He walks it over to the clerk, jaw set. The clerk takes it gingerly, plugging it into the courtroom computer. After a brief flicker, the courtroom monitors illuminate. The judge gestures. "Let's hear it." The audio kicks on faint background chatter, clinking glasses. A bar, maybe a casino lounge. Then Julian's unmistakable voice, lazy and drunk with self-congratulation. "Bro, it was easy. You think these escrow morons double-check signatures on some dying old man's kid's papers? I signed that shit left-handed while I was half high. Sold the place out from under my stuck-up sister and her guilt complex. She'll cry about Daddy's house, but it's all fun coupons now, man." A muffled male laugh. "Savage. What if she finds out?" Julian again, tone oily with disdain. "Let her. Sophia was always the soft one. She'll write some big speech, get all righteous. I'll throw a cutter way to shut her up, spin it to page 6 like it's a misunderstanding. Trust me, rich girls fold." Silence detonates across the courtroom. Sophia's lungs seize. For a moment, she genuinely thinks she might throw up. Her own brother bragging about dismantling their father's legacy like it was a bar trick. So sure of her weakness, he mocked it openly. Marcia's hand closes over Sophia's forearm, a reassuring squeeze. Across the aisle, Devane is ghost white, leaning in furiously toward Julian, whispering with barely controlled fury. Julian's smug posture has evaporated. His eyes dart from the judge to the screens, then to Sophia, and for the first time she sees raw fear there. The judge clears her throat voice a steel cable. Mr. Devane, do you or your client care to explain this new revelation? Devane stands visibly rattled. Your Honor, we'd argue this is informal bar banter, heavily edited. I will be the judge of credibility, the judge cuts in coldly. Given this direct admission of fraudulent conduct, I find there is sufficient concern to immediately freeze all remaining accessible accounts and assets under Mr. Julian Carter's control pending further proceedings. I am also referring this transcript to the District Attorney's Office for evaluation of criminal fraud charges. Julian jolts in his chair. Wait, Your Honor, you can't just— Oh, I absolutely can, the judge says, eyes flat and unflinching. She turns to the court clerk. Issue certified copies to the DA's liaison today. We will reconvene in 30 days to address preliminary motions on the criminal side. This court stands in recess. Her gavel cracks down, a final echoing blow. As the courtroom erupts, bailiffs shuffling people out, reporters clamoring for statements, Julian spins on Devane, hissing furiously. His face is blotchy red sweat breaking along his hairline. Across the aisle, Sophia just stands, slowly drawing herself to her full height. Julian's eyes lock with hers, brimming with panic that rapidly curdles into fury. He mouths something across the distance. It might be, "You'll regret this," or it might be, "This isn't over, it doesn't matter." Leon steps up beside Sophia, his bulk cutting off the view. He's scared, Leon says quietly. About time. Marcia's lips curve into a sharp, satisfied line. Let's go give the press a statement that actually matters. They exit through a side corridor to avoid the worst of the media crush. Even so, a few cameras catch up, shouting questions that rebound through the marble hall. Ms. Carter, did you know about your brother's criminal activities before today? Is this the end of the Carter real estate empire? Sophia pauses at the top of the courthouse steps, the gray sky heavy above her. For the first time in weeks, her shoulders don't feel weighed down by invisible chains. She looks straight into the nearest camera, her voice steady clear. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of fixing what my brother tried to destroy. My father built everything with integrity. I'm here to make sure that legacy stays intact and that anyone who tried to profit off lies answers for it. A barrage of flashes follows her words. Somewhere in the cluster of reporters, she hears someone murmur, "Strong statement, that's gonna run." Marcia nods approvingly. Leon simply claps her lightly on the back, a grin flashing under his grizzled beard. Told you not soft, just waiting for the right moment to strike. By the time they climb into Marcia's car, Sophia's phone is buzzing with news alerts. Headlines already roll in. Carter heir faces freeze amidst fraud allegations. Sister files. Damning evidence. Secret recording sinks. Luxury lifestyle. Julian Carter's world unravels. She exhales a long, shaking breath. Relief doesn't quite come, not yet, but something inside her shifts, like a building settling onto new, sturdier foundations. Her father's voice returns soft but fierce. Don't let anyone stand on your back to see further. She closes her eyes, whispering into the hollow dark of the car so only she can hear. I didn't, Dad. I promise I never will. Julian Carter's fall from grace isn't a quiet one. It starts with a single headline that rips through Sophia's phone screen like a blade. Seattle heir Julian Carter investigated for fraud, forgery, family empire at risk. Then another from a national outlet 2 hours later. From penthouse parties to courtroom shame, Julian Carter's luxury lifestyle built on lies. By evening, the story has gone viral. News vans crowd the block outside Julian's gated rental in Miami. Paparazzi cluster by the palms, their long lenses trained on the balcony where Julian once posed for Instagram shots with Cara and champagne. Now the balcony curtains are permanently drawn. Sophia watches it all unfold from her hotel, the TV volume low but relentless. A local anchor stands in front of the Miami skyline, microphone perfectly angled. Tonight, shocking revelations about Julian Carter, once celebrated as a charismatic young investor in the Seattle property market. Leaked court documents and an explosive audio recording obtained by this station appear to confirm Carter not only forged his sister's signature to liquidate family assets, but also boasted of manipulating escrow firms with forged paperwork. Prosecutors are said to be reviewing potential criminal charges. They cut to footage of Julian hurrying from his BMW into a building, head down, ball cap pulled low. Reporters swarm him. A woman shrieks, "What about the allegations you cheated your sister out of her inheritance?" Julian shoves past, muttering a curse. He doesn't even look at the cameras. Sophia sits very still, clutching a chipped hotel coffee mug that's long since gone cold. The TV's glow washes over her face, stark and unforgiving. This is what justice looks like in its earliest form, not a verdict, not a prison cell, but the brutal court of public opinion. Her brother's name is now synonymous with deceit. Every smirk, every casual cruelty he showed outside the courthouse is replayed over and over in slow motion, painted as evidence of a man who thought himself untouchable. A sick part of her tries to find satisfaction in it. Isn't this what he deserves? But it tastes hollow on her tongue, because behind the garish tabloid graphics and overblown pundit segments is still her brother. The kid who used to shove soggy Pop-Tarts under her door when she was mad. The boy who screamed when their dad put a frog on his shoulder. But then the screen flashes again, that line from the audio clip where Julian laughs about forging her name left-handed half high, and the old wound reopens fresh and raw. Sophia forces herself to watch it, to remember, because if she ever forgets exactly how far he fell, she might be tempted to offer a hand to help him back up. And that can never happen. 3 days later, the next rupture comes. Sophia's phone buzzes with an alert from a Miami gossip site, the sort that usually runs club openings and plastic surgery rumors. The banner photo is shockingly bright in contrast to the grim headlines of late Kara Weston Julian's ever-present brunette companion, stepping off a private yacht with a small mountain of designer luggage. The caption, "Carter Scandal Fallout, Kara Weston. Seen jetting to Cabo San's, Julian's source, says she cashed out joint accounts." Sophia's mouth goes dry. She skims the breathless paragraphs. According to anonymous insiders, likely Kara's friends leaking for quick cash, Kara liquidated multiple accounts tied to Julian, the last reservoirs of ready money he had after the asset freezes. Then she ghosted. No forwarding address, no tearful goodbye. One quote stands out like a slap. Kara said she'd stick around if Julian kept her in penthouses. No penthouse, no Kara. Sophia sits back, the phone heavy on her chest. For a brief, ugly instant, she imagines Julian reading this on his own cracked phone screen, alone in some overpriced rental curtains drawn, realizing the woman he once toasted under neon spotlights has vanished with the last of his liquidity. Part of her flinches at the cruelty, but another harder shard deep inside her whispers, "He stole more than money from you. He stole years of safety your father built. He risked everything because he thought you'd fold." This is simply what it looks like when the cost finally comes due. The next morning brings a new wave of reporters, this time clustered outside Julian's real estate offices in Seattle. The building manager eventually emerges to tell them the lease is terminated for non-payment. Mr. Carter's team cleared out after hours. I don't know where he's gone. Clips flood social media. Julian's once bustling offices empty, the glass door smeared with leftover tape from the company logo that's been hastily ripped down. A lone plant sits wilting inside. It looks like a tomb. Leon texts her a short video. Julian, in a parking garage, face pale and damp with sweat, shoving a battered suitcase into the back of a dented rental. No Kara, no handlers. Just him, eyes darting the gaunt lines of desperation clear even in the grainy footage. Leon told you, pride's the first casualty, then come the rest. Sophia stares at the clip until her phone dims. Somewhere in the whirlpool of her chest, guilt, vindication, grief, a dark, settled calm begins to take root. Julian is finally facing consequences that don't depend on her generosity. Society is doing its part, stripping away his illusions. By late afternoon, financial blogs are picking up the trail. An article on Medium by a forensic accountant breaks it down in brutal simplicity. Julian Carter's liquidity problems were inevitable the moment his sister filed suit. With documented forgeries now public plus looming criminal charges, no reputable investor or lender will touch him. His Miami lifestyle was fueled by short-term lines of credit that depended entirely on reputation. That's evaporated. Any remaining cash was low-hanging fruit for a savvy partner, and Kara Weston appears to have been exactly that. The last line chills her despite herself. It's unlikely Carter will regain any financial standing. Pending felony charges may also bar him from holding executive roles or professional licenses. Sophia sets her phone down gently, hands folded over her mouth. Her pulse flutters. Because despite everything, the stolen house, the forged documents, the hollow laughs over family guilt, part of her never truly believed Julian would crash so completely. It was easier to imagine him as the smirking villain forever untouched by consequences. Watching it happen slowly, piece by piece, is a different kind of punishment, not only for Julian but for the piece of her that once loved him. That evening, she takes a long walk around the city hood, pulled up against a cold drizzle. Headlines blink from sidewalk kiosks and LED tickers outside news stations. Julian's name is everywhere, tangled up with words like fraud and embezzlement. By the time she returns to her hotel, her legs ache. but there's also a strange lightness in her chest, as if she's been carrying Julian's sins in her own lungs for years, and with each article, each fresh scandal, the burden shifts back where it belongs. She stops by the mirror on her way in. The face that stares back isn't exactly triumphant. It's too lined by sleepless nights, too hollowed out by grief, but it's also alert, unflinching, her father's eyes steady even in the storm. Later, as she sifts through a final stack of Marcia's case files, a small notification pings at the corner of her laptop. Julian Carter's last known accounts frozen. DOJ formal investigation confirmed. Sophia lets out a long breath, palms flat on the papers. No tears, just a quiet, profound exhale of something that might be relief, or simply the end of holding her breath. Somewhere across the country, Julian is probably pacing a cheap hotel room phone, buzzing with missed calls from creditors, his reflection a stranger in cracked bathroom mirrors. Kara's laughter is likely echoing in some sunlit cabana he'll never find. The world he built on arrogance and easy theft has collapsed, and for once no one, not Sophia, not their father's old contacts, not even some sleazy lawyer is rushing in to pull him from the wreckage. Sophia closes her laptop, stands. The floor feels solid under her feet in a way it hasn't in months. She turns toward the window where the city lights are blinking alive in the dusk, each one bright and indifferent. This is what justice looks like too, she realizes. Not always loud gavel strikes or prison gates clanging shut. Sometimes it's just the steady, pitiless machinery of reputation dismantling itself, leaving the guilty exactly where they chose to stand alone. And as the evening slides deeper into night, Sophia whispers softly into the dim room, half to herself, half to the father she hopes is listening somewhere past the city glow. "It's starting, Dad. He's paying. Not in the way I thought, but maybe in the way that hurts him most." And with that, she finally allows herself to breathe a little easier. It's just after 2:30 in the morning when the banging starts. At first, Sophia thinks it must be the heating pipes. The old building is notorious for rattling when the system kicks on. But the pounding doesn't come from inside the walls. It thunders through the door to her suite, shaking the latch so violently the entire frame seems to shudder. She sits bolt upright on the couch, heart exploding in her chest. The TV drones quietly in the corner, forgotten. Shadows pool everywhere. The next blow rattles a picture off the wall. Then a voice, low, slurred, dark with rage. "Sophia, open the fucking door. Don't pretend you're not in there." Her stomach plummets. It's Julian. Even muffled through the heavy wood, she'd know that voice anywhere. Only now it's soaked in alcohol, pitched to something feral. She glances around wildly. Her phone lies on the coffee table, buzzing with silent notifications, texts from Marcia maybe, or late email updates from Leon's paralegal. Her hands are shaking so badly it takes 3 tries to pick it up. She taps Leon's number with a fumbling thumb. "Pick up, please pick up." Outside, Julian's tirade grows louder, more desperate. He slams a fist against the door again so hard it sounds like he's trying to break it off its hinges. "You think you're so clever, huh? Running to your fancy lawyers, hiding behind Dad's ghost. But this was supposed to be mine too, Soph, mine. You're not going to steal everything, you selfish." His words dissolve into a strangled roar. Something hits the door, maybe his shoulder, maybe he's kicking it. The entire panel bows inward with a menacing groan. Sophia backs away until her spine hits the far wall phone pressed so tight to her ear it digs into her cheek. Finally, mercifully, Leon's gravelly voice cuts through. "Yeah." Leon, her whisper is a raw rasp. "He's here. Julian's here. He's outside my door. He's trying to get in." There's no pause, no confusion, just the snap of orders. "Stay away from the entrance. Is the latch engaged?" "Yes." "Good. I'm 2 blocks away. Call the front desk. Tell them to lock the elevator. I'll handle it." Before she can protest, the line goes dead. Her hands fumble again, dialing the lobby. The night clerk picks up on the 3rd ring, voice groggy. "Front desk. This is Sophia Carter in 1504. There's a man outside my door. He's threatening me. Lock the elevators now. Please, call the police." "Yes, ma'am, right away." She hangs up before he finishes. Across the suite, the door gives another violent lurch under Julian's assault. His voice is closer now, muffled by desperation. "Sophia, you think the press is done with me? You think your lawyer can protect you forever? I swear to God, if you ruin me, if you take everything, I'll—" He breaks off into a guttural growl. The handle rattles violently as if he's trying to force the lock with brute strength. Sophia clamps a hand over her mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. Her body feels like it might simply refuse to hold her up anymore. Every muscle shakes. The hallway outside suddenly explodes with noise. Heavy footsteps, a deep shout that's not Julian's, then another, the unmistakable bark of authority. "Sir, step back from the door. Hands where we can see them now." Julian's reply is a messy snarl. A crash follows something big, maybe his shoulder again, and then there's a furious scuffle, grunts, a thud, the dry rasp of handcuffs snapping shut. Someone curses. A police radio crackles. Sophia presses both hands over her mouth. She's crying now, silent tears streaking hot down her face. She sinks to her knees by the coffee table, every breath hitching painfully in her chest. A solid knock finally breaks the tense silence, not violent, controlled. Leon's voice floats through the wood, low and calm. "Soph, it's me. He's restrained. You're okay." She crawls to the door, peers through the peephole. Julian is pinned face first against the opposite wall by two uniformed officers. His hair is plastered with sweat, his lips pulled back in a snarl. Spit glistens on his chin. One of his shoes is missing, as if he ran here half-dressed from some bar. Leon stands to the side, broad shoulders filling the hallway. He gives her a tiny nod. Hands still trembling, she undoes the deadbolt, the chain. Slowly opens the door. Julian's head snaps toward her, instantly eyes bloodshot and wide. The look on his face isn't even hatred. It's something rawer, more broken. A snarl crosses his lips. "This is your fault. All of it. You wanted to see me destroyed. Well, congratulations, look around. I have nothing left because of you." Leon steps in front of her so fast, she startles one hand up. The officers tighten their grip on Julian's arms. The younger cop mutters, "Keep your mouth shut before we add terroristic threats." Julian jerks against the hold, eyes never leaving Sophia. "You were supposed to be my sister. You were supposed to protect me." Sophia's throat burns. She grips the edge of the door so hard her knuckles bleach. For a moment, just a single ragged heartbeat, she sees that boy again. The kid who used to plead with her to sneak him extra ice cream when Dad wasn't looking. Who left dumb little drawings on her school notebooks. But then it's gone. Replaced by this man who would break down her door in the dead of night, drunk and raving because he couldn't stand to face the ruin he brought on himself. Her voice emerges rough, almost unrecognizable. "I did protect you, Julian. For years, I cleaned up after you, covered for you, tried to believe you'd grow out of it. You chose this. You chose every lie, every theft. This is you." He lunges just a fraction and the cops shove him roughly back, pinning him hard enough to knock the breath out of him. His face twists, not just in anger now, but pain. The older cop says something into his shoulder radio. Within seconds, they're half-hauling Julian toward the service elevator, his curses fading around the corner. Leon finally turns back to her. His sunglasses are gone, tucked into the collar of his jacket. His eyes are solemn, searching her face. "You all right?" Sophia's laugh cracks out raw and half-crazed. "Do I look all right?" He doesn't smile, just steps forward and wraps an arm around her shoulders, a protective weight that steadies her. For a moment, she sags against him, chest heaving. "They're booking him tonight," Leon says quietly. "Multiple charges, criminal trespass, probable felony intimidation given he tried to bust down your door. Between this and the fraud case, he's done trying to scare you on your doorstep. That chapter's closed." Sophia draws in a shaky breath. Her hand lifts to her collarbone, pressing hard against her racing pulse. She tries to slow it, to anchor herself in the reality that Julian is gone, taken by officers who didn't even look at her with pity, just grim acknowledgement like this was inevitable. Back inside her suite, Leon does a slow walk through every room, checking windows, closets. The thoroughness calms her somehow. When he returns, he gives a short nod. Secure. No sign he tried to jimmy any windows. Sophia lowers herself gingerly onto the couch. The upholstery seems to rise up around her, swallowing her whole. Her knees bounce restlessly, adrenaline still storming through her system. Leon sinks into the armchair across from her. For a long stretch, neither of them speaks. The suite feels cavernous, every tick of the old wall clock slicing into the quiet like a tiny knife. Finally, Sophia breaks the silence. Her voice is barely above a whisper. "I didn't think he'd come. Not here. Not like this." Leon studies her eyes, shadowed. Drunks with nothing left will always find the last bridge to burn. You were that bridge. Her throat tightens painfully, and now it's ash. Leon exhales, rubbing a hand across his jaw. Means he can't cross it again. Not on your watch. The police call an hour later to confirm Julian's booking. Leon handles most of it, asking pointed questions, jotting down details. Sophia listens from the couch, hugging a throw pillow to her chest. When Leon hangs up, he gives her a tired nod. He's sobering up in county lockup. They'll keep him overnight, likely hit him with a restraining order by morning, on top of everything else. Sophia presses her hand flat over her heart again, feeling the steady thump there. Slower now, more measured. "This wasn't how I pictured any of it," she whispers. "I thought if he ever paid, it'd be in some boardroom or courtroom, not this." Leon's gaze softens for the first time all night. "Truth is, it's always messier. People don't break in neat lines. But you did what you had to." He brought this storm to your door, and you're still standing. Outside, the city's begun to lighten that thin, steel-gray glow that means dawn isn't far off. For the first time in weeks, Sophia doesn't feel like she has to keep looking over her shoulder, doesn't feel like Julian's shadow might come lurching out of the next hallway. She pushes herself upright, crosses to the wide window. Her reflection stares back at her rumpled, tear-stained hair, a wild tangle but alive, and not running. Leon's voice drifts from the armchair low and almost proud. Told your father once I'd keep an eye out for you if he ever couldn't. Think tonight he'd say debt paid. Sophia's breath hitches. A hot tear slides down her cheek. But this time it's not just fear or grief, it's release, a long-held weight easing off her chest. She whispers more to the fading city skyline than to Leon, thanks Dad, for building me strong enough to outlast even him. And as the last police cruiser's lights fade down the street below, Sophia closes her eyes, letting herself finally exhale slow, steady, and unbroken. The courthouse feels colder this morning, a sharp clinical chill that seems to seep straight through Sophia's blazer and settle deep in her chest. Outside, a thin film of frost clings stubbornly to the courthouse steps glittering under a wan sun. Inside, the air is heavy with anticipation. Rows of spectators fill the gallery, local business people who once toasted Julian over cocktails, journalists eager for another scandal headline, even a handful of curious strangers. They all lean forward when the bailiff calls the case. State of Washington v. Julian Carter. Sophia sits near the front beside Marcia, hands clenched around a leather portfolio that's long since lost any real significance. It's just something to hold to keep from visibly shaking. Leon stands behind her, arms crossed over his broad chest like a personal wall against the world. Across the aisle, Julian is led in by two deputies. He wears the standard muted gray suit collar, rumpled tie askew. His hair is longer now, unkempt at the ends. Dark circles stain the skin under his eyes. It's the first time Sophia's seen him in weeks, and the difference is stark. Gone is the slick Miami playboy who strutted for cameras, the grinning heir who used to wink at her across family dinners. In his place is a man, diminished shoulders, slightly hunched skin, sallow from nights spent under harsh fluorescent lights. But when their eyes meet, Julian's lip curls, a tiny bitter sneer. Hatred flashes there, sharp and undiluted. It slices through Sophia like a cold wire, makes her stomach clench painfully. Because even after everything, the arrests, the frozen assets, the damning evidence projected on courtroom screens, he still blames her. The prosecutor, a composed woman named Reyes, steps forward to deliver the final sentencing argument. Her voice is clear, no nonsense. Your Honor, the state's case rests on overwhelming documentation, forged signatures admitted by expert testimony, offshore accounts Julian Carter used to launder proceeds from fraud audio of the defendant himself bragging about deceiving both escrow officers and his own sister. This was not an isolated lapse in judgment. This was a calculated pattern of criminal exploitation stretching across multiple states and international jurisdictions. We respectfully recommend a sentence of 12 years to reflect the seriousness of the fraud and to deter similarly situated offenders. Marcia stands next. Her statement is brief but lethal, cutting through any last attempt Julian might make to twist the story. Your Honor, my client trusted her brother with the legacy their father built from the ground up. Instead of stewardship, Julian Carter chose deception. He inflicted profound emotional and financial harm, not just to Ms. Carter, but to every lender, contractor, and small business swept up in his schemes. We support the prosecution's recommendation. Julian's defense lawyer rises, voice strained. He gestures to Julian with a faintly desperate hand. Mr. Carter regrets the pain caused. We argue his lack of prior convictions and personal struggles with substance misuse merit leniency. We ask for no more than 5 years with eligibility for early release upon rehabilitation. Sophia's jaw tightens, regrets the pain, not the fraud, not the theft, just the fallout, the part where he got caught. The judge, an older man with deep grooves etched into his face, leans forward. He looks at Julian for a long moment, not with sympathy, but with a kind of weary disapproval that says he's seen far too many men like this. When he speaks, his voice is heavy with finality. Mr. Carter, you inherited not only a substantial estate, but the trust of your family and community. You repaid that trust with greed, manipulation, and brazen disregard for the law. The evidence against you, particularly your own recorded admissions, leaves this court no doubt as to your intent. It is therefore the sentence of this court that you serve 10 years in state prison. He shifts his gaze to the bailiff. The defendant is remanded immediately. Additionally, this court orders restitution full civil liability for defrauded parties, totaling $4.6 million with all remaining assets under court administration for liquidation. Julian's mouth falls open. For a second, he seems almost too stunned to react. Then the color drains from his face, replaced by an ugly mottled red. 10 years. Are you insane? His voice cracks, shrill. She set me up. This is all because of her. He points across the aisle, straight at Sophia, eyes wild. You smug little. Deputies step in. One clamps a firm hand on Julian's shoulder, steering him toward the side door. The handcuffs clink into place. Metal against bone. Julian tries to twist free, glaring over his shoulder at Sophia. You think you won, Soph. You ruined your own family. I'll rot because of you. Hope you can sleep with that. Sophia doesn't flinch, doesn't drop her gaze. Her hands grip the back of the bench in front of her so tightly her knuckles burn. In that moment, she sees not the monster who threatened her at her hotel door, not the arrogant cheat from glossy magazine spreads, but the brother she once tried so hard to protect, eaten alive by his own envy, too blind to see he destroyed himself. The bailiff gives Julian a rough nudge. He stumbles through the side door, the steel of the handcuffs catching the courtroom light one last time before the panel clicks shut behind him. Silence ripples out in his wake, broken only by the shuffle of reporters leaving to file stories that will be online before Sophia even reaches the courthouse steps. Marcia turns to her, expression grim but satisfied. 10 years, it's solid. No probation games, no house arrest. And the restitution order is going to keep him tangled in civil compliance for a long time, even after he's out. Leon leans close, his low voice nearly lost in the shuffle of people exiting the gallery. Looked you dead in the eye till the end. Still thinks it was you that wrecked him. Sophia lets out a shaky laugh that's not truly amused. Of course he does. He'll probably keep telling himself that story every day he's behind bars. Otherwise, he'd have to admit he did it all to himself. Leon's answering nod is slow, thoughtful. That might be the harsher sentence. They step out into the weak afternoon sun. Cameras swarm instantly, microphones thrust into her face. Ms. Carter, any statement on your brother's sentencing? Do you believe justice was served? What would your father think of how this ended? The last question punches the air from her lungs. For a heartbeat, she just stands there, the courthouse pillars at her back, the clamoring press ahead. Then she draws a deep, careful breath. My father built everything he had with honesty and grit. I think today would break his heart. But I also think he'd want accountability for everyone, even family. A flashbulb pops. Another reporter shouts, Do you plan to visit Julian in prison? Sophia's eyes tighten. Her mouth firms into a line that's equal parts sorrow and hard-won boundary. No, I think we're both exactly where our choices have put us. Leon guides her through the crowd with a hand on her shoulder. They slip into the waiting car. As it pulls away, Sophia looks back through the rear window at the courthouse steps, now emptying of press and spectators at the heavy oak doors that swallowed Julian. A faint part of her wonders if she'll ever see him again outside a prison visiting room. Another part hopes she never does. Inside the quiet of the car, her hands finally stop shaking. She rubs her palms together, feeling the heat return to them. A tear slips free, but it's not just grief. It's relief. It's the final uncoiling of fear she's carried like a stone in her chest ever since Julian first forged her signature and sold off the bedrock of their family's life. Leon breaks the silence, voice rough but almost gentle. You did what he couldn't. You faced the truth head on, didn't flinch from it. Sophia watches the city blur past offices and parks and families on sidewalks, all oblivious to the Carter siblings' ugly collision playing out under headlines. Her throat tightens around a quiet, raw reply. Yeah, and I'll carry it. All of it. Because that's what Dad meant by building something worth keeping. Not just the money, the principles that protect it. Leon gives a small nod, almost a salute. Man would have been damn proud. And as they merge into the afternoon traffic, Sophia leans back against the headrest, closing her eyes. The sun breaks through the clouds for the first time all day, splashing warm light across her face. Not a celebration, not yet, but a reprieve, a promise that something gentler might still wait on the other side of this long, bruising road. And she is finally unmistakably free to walk toward it. Sophia Carter never thought tranquility would come to her in the gentle hush of lake water against old stones, or that she'd find herself standing barefoot in dew-drenched grass at dawn holding a tiny lavender plant like it was something sacred. But life, she's learned, is never interested in your neat expectations. Sometimes it breaks you down to bones so it can rebuild you somewhere softer, stronger. It started 3 months after the sentencing. The court's financial administrator finalized the auction of Julian's seized holdings, strip malls, apartment projects, his flashy boat. The last trickles of money went to satisfying creditors, plugging debts Julian left behind like open wounds. Sophia's phone rang on a rainy Wednesday morning. Marcia's number. The attorney's voice was oddly light, almost incredulous. "It's done. Every lien satisfied, every judgment paid off. You're clear, Sophia, entirely clear. Which means we can finally move ahead with Zurich." The Zurich portfolio had sat untouched for months, coiled like a sleeping dragon. That small black binder holding deeds, licensing agreements, and audited reserve reports on a vast lithium operation sprawled across salt flats in Argentina was easily worth 9 figures. It was the crown jewel of her father's quiet empire building set aside offshore in a protective trust meant for catastrophic times. Sophia took 3 days to decide, walked city blocks until her feet blistered, sat alone in theaters watching movies she couldn't later recall, drifted aimlessly through grocery aisles, just to be surrounded by the casual ordinariness of people who didn't know her name. Finally, one evening, she poured a glass of wine, opened her laptop, and instructed her investment team to execute the sale. It closed 2 weeks later. She read the final wire confirmation, more zeros than she could emotionally process, then closed the screen and wept for almost an hour straight. Not because of greed, because of the staggering relief, because her father's desperate precautions had worked, because now finally she could do something that felt right. The first meeting with the board of the new Carter Foundation happened in a sunlit conference room with donated space from an old friend of Leon's. The mission was simple fund scholarships for kids who, like Sophia once did, grew up in single-parent homes that constantly teetered on the edge of losing everything. She sat at the head of the table, fingers laced tight, and told the small group gathered a retired school principal, a financial watchdog. Leon vouched for a children's psychologist who specialized in resilience research, exactly what she wanted. "I want a place that says to a kid, 'We see you. We believe in your future even if no one else can afford to yet.' This isn't just tuition. It's mentorship. It's laptops, travel stipends, warm winter coats. It's saying you deserve a seat at the table because of who you are, not who can write a check for you." They agreed unanimously. When Sophia left that afternoon clutching the freshly signed articles of incorporation, her breath fogged in the winter air, but inside she felt incandescent. Still, it took another month before she finally drove out to see the lake house. It sat at the end of a winding road, perched above sapphire water so still it seemed to hold its breath. White egrets stood knee-deep at the edges. The house itself was modest by her father's standards, a 2-story place with long porches, broad eaves, and windows that caught every sunset. An elderly couple had kept it for decades, raising kids and then grandkids there before finally downsizing to a condo in town. The woman still walked Sophia through the hallways, pointing out small scuffs on the banister, laughing about teenage skateboard disasters, her voice full of tender goodbyes. When they left, handing over the keys felt less like a transaction and more like a gentle passing of a story. Sophia stood alone in the empty living room after they drove off, sunlight pooling across bare wood floors. For the first time since her father's funeral, she didn't feel haunted by empty space. She felt like she'd come full circle, like a house could be a promise again. That spring, she ordered a truckload of young lavender bushes from a local nursery. A retired horticulturist named Maggie helped her space them out across the sloping backyard. They worked side by side for hours under a tender May sun, hands deep in loamy soil. "These'll take root fast," Maggie said, patting one into place. "Give it 2 years, you'll have a sea of purple humming with bees. Smell'll knock you flat when the wind's right." Sophia just nodded, throat thick, because she remembered that dream on the plane to Zurich, her father leading her through an endless lavender field, smiling before he faded away. Now she was building it into reality, one small fragrant plant at a time. She waited until dusk to finally share it. Settled on the back porch with a mug of mint tea legs tucked under her, she flipped her phone open to start a video call. Leon answered after the second ring. He was in his tiny office files stacked to one side, glasses perched low on his nose. When he saw her surroundings, the lake spilling out behind her lavender rose, catching the last coral light, his eyebrows shot up. "Well, look at you, like a damn magazine spread." Sophia laughed, the sound surprising her by how free it felt. She tilted the phone to show more of the view. The young lavender wasn't much yet, thin green shoots, small buds, but under the golden wash of evening they looked almost ethereal. "I bought it last month. Just moved in fully this week. Had to make sure it was truly mine, not another piece waiting for someone to come steal it." Leon's expression softened. "Smart girl. Looks peaceful. Is it Sophia glanced around. The only sounds were crickets tuning up for their night symphony, the occasional soft plunk of a fish jumping. She hugged the mug to her chest. "Yeah, it is. And I think I'm going to keep it that way." They talked another 20 minutes. Leon teased her about needing a dog to keep the deer off her porch, promised to visit once his latest consulting contract wrapped. Before they hung up, his face went solemn. "Your old man'd be real damn proud, Soph. Not for the money, for this. For finding something gentle after all that hell." Her throat clenched painfully. She nodded. "I hope so. I tell myself every morning I'm living here continuing his dream, but I'm also trying to make it mine." Leon just gave her that small, approving tilt of his chin. "Good. That's the best legacy there is." After the call night wrapped itself fully around the lake house, Sophia stayed out on the porch long after her tea went cold. Stars stitched themselves across the dark water in trembling rows. Somewhere down the shoreline, a loon called long and low like the world sighing out a secret. She pressed her palm flat to her chest right over the steady thump of her heart. A heart that had survived betrayal, fear public spectacle, the excruciating choice to watch her brother led away in chains, and yet it still beat on warm and full, ready to risk opening again. Much later, she padded back inside. The living room was faintly lit by small brass lamps casting cozy pools of gold. Boxes still sat stacked by the bookshelves waiting to be unpacked, but she felt no rush. For the first time, everything was on her schedule. No looming trial dates, no urgent subpoenas, no breathless emails from investment bankers. She curled up on the couch and opened the latest packet from the Carter Foundation's director. Inside were short handwritten notes from the first cohort of scholarship recipients, kids from rough blocks in Tacoma, from windswept farms outside Yakima, from high-rise apartments where utilities got cut off every other month. Notes thanking her, promising her they wouldn't waste it. A boy named Andre wrote, "My mom cried when she heard. Said nobody ever gave us anything for free before. I won't mess this up. I'll prove you were right to believe in me." Tears sprang to Sophia's eyes. She hugged the letters to her chest. This was why her father had started with a single rental house scraped together from weekends pouring concrete and evenings doing the books by hand. Not just so she could wear nice shoes or travel, but so one day the hard-won prosperity could ripple outward, catching kids who might have fallen the same way she almost did. As she drifted towards sleep that night, windows cracked open to let in cool lake air. She thought she heard her father's voice. Not literal, not a ghost, but the way memory sometimes arranges itself into small blessings. "See, Soph, this is the future I meant for you, not theirs, yours." She smiled into the darkness, whispering so soft it was almost a prayer. "I know, Dad, and I promise I'll keep building it, for me, for them, for you." And in that fragile, perfect moment between waking and dreams, Sophia finally felt like every fractured piece of her life had found its proper place. No longer a cautionary tale, no longer someone else's collateral. Simply a woman quietly victorious planting fields of lavender to remind the world and herself that healing could be breathtaking, stubborn, and stunningly real. Sophia didn't plan to visit the cemetery that morning. It was one of those small, intuitive impulses that arrived unannounced, the gentle nudge to turn left instead of right, to follow a winding back road that eventually emptied onto a hill lined with weather-worn markers and quiet trees. The air was cool but gentle, the kind of spring day her father always loved. The sky overhead was a soft, forgiving blue with thin white ribbons of cloud drifting lazily past. It felt less like a graveyard and more like a tranquil park where even grief might find a place to rest. She parked beneath a sprawling oak and stepped out, lavender bouquet in hand. The flowers were from her own yard, slender stalks crowned with violet blooms still fragrant from the morning sun. As she made her way up the gravel path, the scent clung to her fingers, a sweet, comforting ghost of the life she was building. Her father's headstone stood near the top of a gentle slope, simple and unpretentious. Just his name, his birth and death dates, and a short line she'd chosen during those raw, sleepless days after he passed. "He built more than homes, he built hearts." Back then, the words had felt almost like a plea, a desperate hope that someone would remember the man behind the contracts and title deeds. Now, standing here again, they rang truer than ever. Because she wasn't the only testament to his legacy anymore. Dozens of kids had scholarships now, their futures brightened by his diligence and quiet sacrifices. 1,000 lavender blooms bent to the lake breeze each morning because of seeds he'd sown long ago, teaching her the slow art of patience and care. She knelt, brushing away a few stray blades of grass that had curled over the base. Then she laid the lavender carefully across the smooth granite fingers lingering there as if to share a secret. "Hey, Dad." Her voice broke a little on the simple greeting. Strange how it could still do that after so many years, how saying it aloud brought a rush of memory so vivid it nearly upended her. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. The breeze carried the faint mineral scent of stone, the brighter edge of new leaves opening on nearby branches. Somewhere behind her, a bird sang one of those rapid, cascading melodies that never quite resolved. "I wanted you to know I did it. Or at least I'm trying to. Not by chasing revenge until there was nothing left. I thought for a while that's what I needed. To see Julian crushed, to stand over the wreck of everything he tried to steal and feel triumphant." Her hand flattened against the headstone, cool and solid under her palm. "But it didn't work like that. It was hollow. Watching him get sentenced, seeing the headlines tear him apart, it was justice, yeah, it was necessary. But it wasn't the victory I thought it'd be, because it couldn't fix what he broke in us. It couldn't give you back, couldn't give back all the nights you stayed up worrying how to pay contractors on time or keep the lights on just so I could have dance lessons or a new backpack." Her throat tightened, words tangling with tears. "But I found something else, something better. I sold the mine, Dad. I sold that big, complicated piece of you that you set aside just in case. And I took that money and I made it mean something here, in the real world. I started that scholarship fund. Kids you'd have loved, kids with shy smiles and sharp minds who never thought anyone would notice them. They're going to college now. They'll get to grow up without the same dread that we carried for so long." Her laugh was wet, embarrassed by its own shaking edge. "And I bought the house by the lake. Planted your damn lavender like I promised you 1,000,000 years ago. It's small still, but it's coming up strong. Just wait till next year, it'll look like that dream I had on the plane to Zurich. You walking ahead of me, pointing out every bloom." She drew in a slow breath, steadied herself. The sun warmed her shoulders, easing some of the ache that always lodged there. "Julian?" She started, then hesitated. For a long time just let the wind speak for her, stirring the lavender she'd placed so carefully. "Julian's paying his own price. Not because I forced it, because he chose it. I don't think I hate him anymore. Which doesn't mean I forgive him completely. I don't know if I ever could. But I've stopped letting the anger eat the parts of me you loved best. I let it go, Dad. For you. For me." A tear slipped free, dropping onto the stone. She didn't bother to wipe it away. She sat there a while longer, telling him about little things. The way the lake mist rolled in at dawn, so soft it felt like another world. How Leon kept dropping by unannounced with boxes of groceries and zero apologies. The way the scholarship kids wrote her thank you notes that sounded like tiny declarations of war on every low expectation anyone ever set for them. By the time she rose, her legs were stiff. The sun had climbed higher, dappling the ground in bright gold. She touched the top of the headstone one last time, fingers whispering over the engraved letters. "I'm okay now," she whispered. "Not because Julian was punished. Because I chose to be happy. That's how I'm beating him, by living the life you dreamed I'd have. Full, safe, loved. I hope that's enough for you." She stepped back, gave the grave a small nod like it was part promise, part goodbye. Then she turned toward the car. Driving home, the world felt different. Not cleansed or magically healed. Grief didn't work like that. Trauma didn't erase itself just because a court gavel fell. But lighter. As if the tight net around her ribs had finally loosened, letting her lungs expand all the way. She rolled down the window as she drove past wide fields outside the city, letting the wind tangle her hair. The open road ahead glistened faintly with heat. It looked endless, and for the first time in forever, that didn't scare her. It felt like possibility. When she pulled into her gravel drive by the lake, the young lavender bushes were waiting, little green armies pushing new buds toward the sky. Bees flitted lazily between them. Sophia killed the engine and just sat there a moment, soaking it in. Her life, her rules, built from the battered remains of something cruel. Yes, but also from the quiet, relentless kindness her father had sewn into her bones. Later that evening, she took her dinner out to the porch. A simple plate grilled cheese salad slicked with lemon. She balanced it on her knees, toes curling into the warm wooden planks. Across the water, the far shore was already dipped in shadow trees, turning to dark silhouettes against the soft burn of the setting sun. She found herself speaking again, not quite a prayer, not quite a memory. "You'd like it here, Dad. It's calm. Not a single developer has tried to put up a strip mall yet. And the neighbors Robert and May, they bring over pies and pretend they're checking on the plumbing. It's real, solid. Like those mornings you'd drag me to construction sites at 6 a.m. just to show me how a foundation gets poured. Only way to build it to last, you'd say. Start with the ground under your feet. She pressed a hand to her chest, felt her heart kick strong against her palm. I finally did that, Dad. Started with me, not revenge, not chasing down every dollar Julian tried to hide. Just me. And that's enough. More than enough. The sky burned out slowly, all brilliant reds and deep bruised purples, until only a scatter of stars remained. Sophia leaned back in her chair, exhaling long and slow. Each breath felt like claiming something: her future, her peace, her father's enduring faith that she'd find her way here eventually. A breeze lifted off the water, carrying the faint, sweet tang of lavender up to wrap around her shoulders. It felt almost like an embrace, and she let herself believe just for this breath, this heartbeat, that it was. The day melts slowly into evening like wax dripping down the sides of a candle. Over the lake, the sun sets with deliberate, unhurried grace, spilling molten ribbons of orange and deep rose across the water's calm surface. Each gentle ripple fractures the light, scattering small jewels that drift and fade. Sophia sits on the porch steps, elbows braced on her knees, a glass of chilled white wine sweating in her palm. She's barefoot toes brushing the top of the grass where it's begun to grow wild again. Just beyond, the lavender has found its rhythm with the seasons, each stalk crowned with dusky blooms that nod in the soft wind. She watches them sway, breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her heart. It's quiet here, not just silent, but profoundly, soul-deep quiet. The only sounds are the distant murmur of water against the shore, the faint rustle of leaves turning their silver undersides to catch the evening breeze, and the occasional sleepy trill of birds settling into nests. It's the kind of quiet her father would have loved, the kind he chased whenever the contracts and contractors, the mortgage paperwork and city inspectors got too loud. He would have stood right here, thumbs hooked in his belt, squinting out over the lake with that look that meant he was already planning something new, a garden, a boat dock, maybe just a better kind of peace. Sophia takes a slow sip, letting the wine bloom cool across her tongue, then leans back on her hands. Above her, the first faint stars begin to stitch themselves into the dusky velvet sky. She thinks about all the ways she could have let this story end. By clawing every last penny from Julian's ruin, by chasing lawsuits across state lines until neither of them had anything left. By letting hatred calcify into something hard and permanent so heavy it would sink her right alongside him. But she didn't. Somehow guided by the thin, steady thread of her father's old lessons, by Leon's patient loyalty, by her own battered heart's quiet insistence that there must be more than vengeance, she found another way. She built something instead, a life her brother could never fathom. Not in the cold confines of a prison cell, nor in the garish neon bars where he once flaunted borrowed wealth. Not even in the shadowy corners of his regret. The lavender fields catch the last light like tiny lanterns glowing purple and silver. A soft breath of wind pushes through them, and they seem to whisper to each other small conspiracies of scent and rustle. The fragrance drifts up to her clean and sharp, edged with the promise of tomorrow. Sophia draws in a long, deliberate inhale, lets it fill every corner of her chest, lets it push out the final lingering scraps of fear that once lived there, the fear that Julian might circle back into her life, the fear that her father would be disappointed in how she chose to heal, the fear that real peace was something reserved for other people. When she exhales, it's as if she's been holding that breath since Tokyo, since the first moment she saw the for sale sign hanging crooked outside what used to be their home. Her voice breaks the hush, low but clear, spoken to no one and everyone all at once. Sometimes, revenge isn't about destroying the person who hurt you. It's about building a life they'll never be able to reach. That's the real victory. She says it like she's testing the weight of it on her tongue. It doesn't feel bitter. It feels startlingly light, like truth, like forgiveness, not for Julian, maybe never fully for him, but for herself, for the girl who once believed she could hold a broken family together by sheer force of will, for the woman who finally realized that loving someone didn't mean letting them keep hurting you. A stronger gust pushes across the lake just then, ruffling the lavender until it dances in small rolling waves. The scent wraps around her shoulders almost like arms. It carries bits of memory, her father's laugh under a too bright sun, the rough scrape of his calloused thumb across her knuckles, the warm weight of his hand on her shoulder the last night he was alive. For a heartbeat, Sophia closes her eyes. In the red hush behind her lids, she imagines he's sitting beside her on these steps, leaning forward on his elbows just the same way. Imagines him nodding, once satisfied, like he always did when something turned out even better than he hoped. When she opens her eyes again, the lake is darker. studded with the trembling reflections of early stars. Her pulse is steady, her lungs expand easily. And for the first time in a long time, there is no echo of Julian's voice in her mind. No courtroom gavel, no hotel door rattling under drunken fists, just the wind, the scent, the slowly cooling wood beneath her, and the soft certainty that she's exactly where she's supposed to be. As the screen fades to black, the last thing we hear is the lavender field rustling under the tender sweep of night wind. It sounds almost like laughter, almost like a promise. And it carries Sophia's quiet triumph far beyond this porch, this lake, even this lifetime, into the gentle certainty that some victories are best measured not by what they destroy, but by what they so beautifully stubbornly create.